Chapter 17. Mother, I'm done here, Lin Yun said with a smile. Lin Wanqing nodded softly and looked around. It was already spotless. She nodded slowly and said, "It's about time for today. At this moment. What's going on? Where did it go? Why is the jade pendant I left here gone?" Lin Dongbiao looked around in panic, as if he had lost something valuable. "Young master, did you leave it outside?" "Impossible. I left on the table before I left," Lin Dongbiao roared. Lin Wanqing and Lin Yun had already stopped their work. Lin Wanqing was stunned, but Lin Yun's face had turned green. Yes, I remember. I saw the jade pendant before I left," Akai said. Yes. Awang slapped his leg and looked at Lin Wanqing with a gloomy look. He said angrily, "Speak. Did you poor bastards steal my young master's jade pendant? If you know what's good for you, hand it over. Otherwise, humph, you'll suffer." Lin Wanqing turned pale and stepped back. "So it was you who stole it," Lin Dongbiao said angrily with his eyes wide open. Lin Wanqing was a woman who had never seen such a situation. She was already panicking and waved her hands. No, young master." Kai narrowed his eyes and said sharply, "You're stammering. It's obvious that you're guilty." "We didn't steal it." Lin Yun stood up angrily. "There's only you and your mother here. You look poor. Who else could it be?" Awang said coldly. Holding his mother with his right hand, Lin Yun stood in front of them with his thin body. He said in a low voice, "If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Although he could not see anything with his eyes closed, Lin Yun's heart was clearer than anyone else's. Lin Dongbiao's expression suddenly changed. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "It seems I have to teach you a lesson." "Awang Akai." "Yes, young master." The two lackeys' eyes were cold. "Give him a good beating. Beat them until they tell the truth." "Humph." Lin Dongbiao waved his fat right hand. No. Lin Wanqing's face was deathly pale. In an instant, like two ferocious jackals and wolves, Awang and Akai charged forward with ferocious expressions. Although the two of them only had the strength of intermediate apprentices, it was more than enough to deal with Lin Wanqing and her son. One was a weak woman, and the other was crippled. Bang! Awang raised his hand and punched Lin Yun in the stomach. Lin Yun's internal organs seemed to be churning and twisting together. At this moment, Akai arrived and kicked Lin Yun, sending him flying backward. He landed heavily on the ground and spat out blood. "Yuna!" Lin Wanqing's head was blown. "What are you shouting for? You be *TCH. Akai shouted sharply. His eyes were ferocious. He raised his leg and was about to kick Lin Wanqing. "Don't hit my mother." Lin Yun, who was covered in blood, did not know where his strength came from. His thin and weak body suddenly exploded with great strength. He hugged Akai's legs tightly. "Damn it, little bastard." Awang and Akai were instantly enraged. They kicked Lin Yun mercilessly. They hit Lin Yun until he spat out blood. However, his pale and weak hands were still hugging Akai's legs tightly, unwilling to let go. Don't hit." Lin Wanqing hysterically tried to pull him away, but her limbs were weak and she fell to the ground. At this moment, "Stop!" A thunderous roar came from outside the door. Mixed with a monstrous anger, the roar seemed to shake the roof. "It's brother. Big brother is here." Hearing that familiar voice, Lin Yun's blood-covered face revealed a weak smile. In his heart, Lin Feng was the pillar of support for his family. As long as he was here, he did not need to worry about anything. Lin Dongbiao and his two lackeys stopped what they were doing and turned to look. They saw a young man dressed in coarse hem clothes. His eyes were blood red, his veins were exposed, and his face was extremely ferocious. "Mother, brother." Lin Feng was bone-chillingly cold. At this moment, all the blood in his body seemed to have frozen. Lin Feng had never imagined that he would see such a heart-wrenching scene. "Lin Feng!" Lin Dongbiao and his two lackeys stared, cold sweat flowing down their backs. "It can't be. This old and blind pair are his mother and brother." Lin Dongbiao only felt his legs tremble, his heart beat rapidly, and his body felt waves of coldness for no reason. "Oh no, This Lin Feng is one of the only 5 advanced apprentices in the family. He is famous for being protective. Lin Dongbiao had heard of Lin Feng's deeds. "You bastards!" His voice was as cold as ice, as if it was squeezed out from between his teeth. Lin Feng's body trembled, and he walked step by step towards Lin Wanqing, as if he could not believe what he was seeing. In order to reduce his burden, his mother and brother would go to work every day. Their lives were already hard and tiring, and they had to be ordered around by others. Today, they actually suffered such a thing. It was simply outrageous. "It's me, it's all my fault." Lin Feng was heartbroken and blamed himself. If only he had arrived a little earlier, if only he could have protected them. Turning his head to look at Lin Dongbiao and the other 2, Lin Feng's eyes were spitting fire, as if he wanted to eat them. "I will kill you all." The bone-chilling voice carried an endless chill. Lin Feng roared towards the sky, and his entire body was like a sharp spear. In a split second, he turned into a ray of light, and his right fist directly punched towards Awang. Awang actually used his arm to block. Bang! It was a punch as heavy as 1,000 pounds. What terrifying strength! Awang's face was filled with pain. His arm was numb, as if his bones were shattered. At this moment, Lin Feng's left hand swung again, and a fierce punch came smashing down. Awang had no time to react, and his chest felt as if it had been struck by lightning. His body, which was a head and a half taller than Lin Feng, actually flew back 4 to 5 meters and heavily fell to the ground. Rumble. Lin Dongbiao was scared out of his wits. At this moment, Akai's attack had already arrived. Lin Feng blocked it with his left arm, and Akai felt as if he had hit a rock, and the pain made him grimace. At this moment, Lin Feng forcefully stepped out with his right foot, and the force was transmitted to his spine. Straightening his back, he fiercely exerted force from his waist, and like a python, he bit towards Akai. Not good. Akai's face was filled with shock, but he did not have time to react. He only felt a sharp pain, and along with a warm flow, blood spurted out from his nose. Lin Feng's right foot stepped on Akai's stomach, and his body bent, swinging his left and right iron fists, and as he roared angrily, he continuously hit Akai's dog face. Smack! Smack! Akai's facial bones were completely shattered, and he no longer looked human. Akai had already fainted from the pain, and not far away, Lin Dongbiao and Wang's legs were trembling, and they did not dare to step forward. Lin Feng was really too terrifying. As if venting his anger, Lin Feng's face was covered in blood. He stood up, and his terrifying eyes fell on Lin Dongbiao. "Lin Feng, you don't mess around." Lin Dongbiao's face was filled with shock as he retreated. "I'm warning you, Bang." Like a shooting star, Lin Feng lifted his leg, and that lightning-fast kick landed on Lin Dongbiao's stomach. Lin Dongbiao spat out a mouthful of blood and fell heavily to the ground. His internal organs felt as if they were being burned by a raging fire, and the pain made him die. "Warning my ass." Lin Feng's eyes were red, and he grabbed Lin Dongbiao's clothes by the neck and lifted him up. You. Lin Dongbiao wanted to speak, but his entire body was suspended in the air, and the clothes around his neck made him short of breath, and his face was flushed red. Looking at the ugly face in front of him, Lin Feng's heart burned with rage, and he wanted to skin him alive and tear his bones apart. If he had come just a little later, the consequences would have been unimaginable. "You dare to hit my brother and bully my mother." Lin Feng clenched his right fist, and his muscles were like steel, and his veins bulged like earthworms, making him look ferocious. Bang! A punch landed on Lin Dongbiao's stomach. Bang! Another punch. Lin Dongbiao was lifted up like a puppet, and the lackey, Awang, fell to the ground. The ground was wet, and his face was filled with shock and fear. At this moment, "Put down my young master," a trembling voice sounded. Lin Feng stopped and looked over, only to see a white-haired old man bring in a group of servants with wooden sticks and hoes. He knew the old man, and he was the housekeeper here, Lin Cheng. He was amiable and had a good relationship with Lin Feng. Back then, He was the one who introduced his family to this easy job. Looking at the group of servants who only had the strength of beginner apprentices, Lin Feng frowned, and then his eyes shifted to the half-dead Lin Dongbiao, and his rationality gradually recovered a little. Feng, quickly let go of young Master Dong. Mother Lin Wanqing had already recovered from her shock, and she said nervously. Lin Feng hesitated for a moment, and then threw Lin Dongbiao over. Bang! He landed heavily on the ground. Housekeeper Cheng hurriedly led the crowd to protect Lin Dongbiao, and looked at Lin Feng with a frightened expression, afraid that he would hurt the young master again. Today's matter is not over. Carrying Lin Yun on his back, Lin Feng held Mother Lin Wanqing's cold hand and stepped out of the door step by step. All the servants fearfully made way for them, and no one dared to stop them or even approach them. Brother, is second brother okay? Lin Shui cried until her eyes were red and swollen. How is it, Feng? Lin Wanqing's tears were still stained, and she looked extremely worried. Lin Feng gently covered Lin Yun with a blanket and comforted her. Don't worry, mother. Little brother is fine. Fortunately, he has been training regularly, and his physical fitness is close to that of an ordinary intermediate apprentice, so his injuries are not too serious. Most of them are just superficial wounds. I have already applied medicinal wine for him, but there are 2 other fractures, and he needs to slowly recover. The mother and daughter were slightly relieved. No matter what, it was a great fortune amidst the misfortune. Fortunately, Feng you arrived in time. Otherwise, Lin Wanqing recalled the situation, and she felt a lingering fear. Those scum. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. Indeed, if he had not arrived in time, even his mother would have been beaten up. At this moment, Lin Wanqing's expression changed, and she panicked. Leave quickly, Feng leave quickly. You beat young Master Dong to such a state. They will definitely not let you go. Leave? Lin Feng smiled. If it was in the past, he would have been in trouble, but now, don't worry, mother. Lin Feng's gaze turned cold, like a sharp spear. I will definitely seek justice for little brother. How dare they bully his family? This debt will definitely not be settled. Looking at Lin Feng's wanton and crazy expression, Lin Wanqing could not help but be stunned. She had never seen her son like this. Lin Shi wiped her tears, pursed her lips, and said proudly, Mother, you still don't know, but Big Brother has already passed the assessment and become a preparatory warrior. Lin Wanqing was stunned, and she covered her face with both hands. At this moment, she finally understood why her son was so confident and arrogant. Warriors, that was a transcendent existence. Please recommend it. Please add it to your collection. Xiao. Thanks everyone here. Chapter 18. You guys are really poor. An indifferent and disdainful voice was heard. A young man with disgusting rat spots on his face was sitting in the hall. He was the primary warrior in charge of Lin Feng's assessment, Qiuban. We're just a small village in the mountains. Senior Qiu, please don't mind. Lin Nanhu smiled and poured a cup of wine for Qiuban. Since Senior Qiu doesn't have a place to stay, why don't you stay here for a while and wait for father to recover before we make further plans? That's the only way. Qiuban raised his cup and drank it in one gulp. He angrily cursed. That old bastard Yin Feng is really ruthless. He actually expelled me from the martial hall. Damn it, that's expulsion. It means that I won't be able to enter any martial hall in the future. It's just a little trick on the testing device. Is it that serious? That's right, Lin Nanhu echoed. Suddenly, his eyes flashed and he changed the topic. Actually, it's all Lin Feng's fault. If it weren't for him, you wouldn't have been expelled. That's right. Qiuban slammed the table hard, leaving a deep palm print. He gritted his teeth and said, That bastard. If I get the chance, I'll chop him up. Then, as if he was venting the frustration in his heart, Qiuban picked up the wine jug and gulped it down. Lin Nanhu looked at him, his eyes revealing a deep smile that no one knew about. At this moment, knock. There was a knock on the door. Who is it? Come in, Lin Nanhu said unhappily. An elder who looked like a housekeeper opened the door and cupped his hands. Young master, the patriarch and Madame Yuru are not here. There's something I have to inform you. Oh, cousin, you have to get justice for me. In the side room, Lin Dongbiao was crying and snot. His face was bruised and swollen. Lin Nanhu snorted and said disdainfully, "You don't have to say. It must be because you wanted to blackmail someone and kicked an iron plate." How could Lin Feng not know his cousin's character? He had been playing this kind of low-level trick since he was 7 years old. If it had been the past, he could have beaten Lin Feng at his own game. He could have arrested Lin Feng and punished him according to the Lin family's rules. But now, not to mention that his father didn't allow him to touch Lin Feng. Even if Lin Feng stood there and allowed him to move, he couldn't move. Martial artists, even trainee martial artists, were not restricted by the rules of the clan. They were only supervised by the forces they belonged to. Martial artists were a transcendent existence in the sky martial continent. "Cousin," Lin Dongbiao cried. Lin Nanhu shook off Lin Dongbiao's fat hand in disgust. From the bottom of his heart, he despised this gluttonous and lazy cousin of his. Just as he was about to turn and leave, his eyes suddenly lit up. "Although father doesn't want you to touch Lin Feng, but this is a good opportunity. I could totally borrow cousin's hand. It would be great if I succeed, but even if I fail, I can stay out of it when the time comes. Do you really want revenge?" Lin Nanhu asked in a low voice. "Cousin, you're willing to help me?" Lin Dongbiao wiped away his tears and said in surprise. Lin Nanhu smiled coldly and meaningfully. "No one can help you. Only you can help yourself." "Myself." Lin Dongbiao was stunned. Lin Nanhu's eyes flashed. "We have a guest at home. He's a junior martial artist from the Chihua Martial Hall. I can introduce you to him. As long as you have enough money, not to mention 1 Lin Feng, even killing 10 Lin Fangs would be as easy as flipping your hand." "Kill Lin Feng?" Lin Dongbiao was stunned. "You don't dare?" Lin Nanhu mocked. Who said I don't dare?" Under Lin Nanhu's contemptuous gaze, Lin Dongbiao puffed out his chest, but he was a little weak. "But cousin, I don't have money. I'll lend it to you." Lin Nanhu smiled indifferently, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Lin Dongbiao looked hesitant. He bit his lip, but finally nodded heavily. At night, the night sky was dotted with stars, reflecting each other's splendor. Lin Feng was forced to seclude himself in the scorching hot cave, studying the elemental force cultivation method. Elemental power is the most original power in the world. According to the book, as long as I reach the standard of a preparatory martial artist, I can officially start cultivating. Lin Feng took a deep breath, his eyes shining. The cultivation of elemental power is divided into sensing and absorbing. According to the book, the first sensing and absorbing are the most difficult. But at the same time, it's also the most effective. To absorb, one must first sense the existence of elemental power. Ordinary geniuses can sense it on the first day of cultivation. For those with weak talent, it will take 1.5 years just to sense it. Lin Feng adjusted his breathing and thought to himself. Sensing is divided into 2 steps. The first step is posture. First, the posture of the body must be as close to perfect as possible. The more perfect the posture, the easier it is to sense elemental power. Every word and sentence in the book appeared in his mind. Lin Feng slowly placed his left leg on his right leg, placed his forearms near his wrists on the inside of his left and right knees, and lightly pressed his tongue against the roof of his mouth. The head was straight, the back of the head was slightly retracted, and the spine was naturally upright. The vertebrae above the vertebrae were relaxed, and the vertebrae below the vertebrae were lowered. At the same time, the upper and lower vertebrae were relaxed and slightly stretched. To achieve a state where the top is empty and the bottom is solid, the body naturally relaxed. It was easier said than done. Without the guidance of a master, Lin Feng could only explore according to his own feelings. However, this was after all a vague definition, and because everyone had a different understanding, 1,000 people could have 1,000 different postures. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, oh no, the posture should only be supplementary. The state of the body is the real key. If the posture is awkward, the body can't relax at all. After changing the posture dozens of times, Lin Feng finally understood. He did not pursue the details, but adjusted the posture to a position that made him feel slightly comfortable and did not deviate too much from the description. In fact, Lin Feng's decision was quite wise. It was as if there were countless paths from a starting point to an end. Perhaps Lin Feng did not choose the shortest path, but it was the most suitable path for him. Inhale, exhale. After a few long and deep breaths, Lin Feng gradually calmed down, causing his body to relax and his mind to become clear. This was the state of the body that was required in the book. The second step is to achieve silence and forgetfulness. According to the book, you have to sit down and calm your heart. You have to leave the realm and live without anything. You have to enter the void. A person can always be peaceful, and the heavens and the earth will return to him. His heart is like Mount Tai, not shaken by the clouds. Silently comprehending the feeling described in the words in the book, Lin Feng soon became silent, and his breathing became inaudible. 1 minute, 2 minutes, a quarter of an hour. All of a sudden, Lin Feng opened his eyes and asked suspiciously, "How did I fall asleep? My heart was very calm just now, so calm that I couldn't even feel myself. Could it be that I didn't forget? Let's try again." Lin Feng closed his eyes and slowly recited the contents of the book in his heart. An hour later, it's still not right. Lin Feng opened his eyes again. Could it be that it's as the book said, that geniuses can succeed in 1 day, and those with weak talent need 1.5 years to sense the origin energy? I don't believe that I'm weak. In his mind, Zi Yao's otherworldly beauty appeared. Thinking about how he had entered the Firmament Sun martial sect and joined the mysterious hunt, Lin Feng suddenly felt a strong sense of confidence. "Zi Yao, there's no reason for me to be wrong." Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He definitely had an extremely strong talent. Huff. After exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Lin Feng's body relaxed again. According to the book, emptiness is natural, forgetting comes from, there's no other, the nature is clear. Using emptiness as the origin acupoint, knowing but not defending is the law, using a thought to not rise is the skill, forgetting is not pure, emptiness is clear. I understand now. It turns out that stillness refers to a form and not the body, and forgetting is not a simple forgetting, it's a kind of empty forgetting. The two should complement each other, becoming a special state and not an independent entity. Stillness, forgetting. This was the second step of sensing, and also the most crucial step. In a hazy state, Lin Feng's heart was like a pure child, but he actually felt something. Firm and persistent. He was like a piece of white paper that was gradually imprinted with ink. Stillness and forgetting. Slowly, in the state of stillness, Lin Feng suddenly felt a strange feeling in his body. So comfortable. Lin Feng trembled slightly. That feeling was clear and natural. Every inch of his skin seemed to be immersed in the night sky, immersed in a kind of mysterious aura. It was as if he had returned to the most primitive state, returning to the embrace of his parents. This is elemental energy. Lin Feng suddenly woke up, but tried hard to maintain a calm state of mind. Using the consciousness to control the body, using the heart to absorb. Following the heart, Lin Feng's consciousness was completely focused. Every inch of his skin seemed to have life, opening up its embrace. In a split second, elemental energy was like a torrent of water, gathering in a spiral from all directions. Palms, soles of feet, mouth, nose, ears. His body seemed to have opened a door, and every part of it began to crazily absorb the gathered elemental energy. A strong aura kept pouring in, and Lin Feng only felt that his body was like a large water tank, constantly filling up with water. His heartbeat quickened. In an instant, the absorption speed of the elemental energy increased by 100 times. This is the elemental energy cultivation method. Lin Feng was incomparably shocked. Suddenly, Lin Feng's soul trembled from the depths of his heart and bone marrow. After the formless and colorless elemental energy entered his body, it was crazily swallowed, transformed, and absorbed by every cell in his body that had been hungry for too long. His cells began to mutate violently. One divided into two, two divided into four. Every cell was strengthened by the elemental energy. Every bone, blood, muscle, and even every inch of his skin underwent a change. No, it should be said that it evolved. This kind of evolution was a leap in life, an upgrade. According to the book, since a person is born, he has never taken the initiative to absorb elemental energy, so he is always in a state of hunger. The first time he absorbs elemental energy, he absorbs the most, and his strength increases the fastest. Lin Feng felt that his entire body, from inside out, was undergoing a qualitative change. This was definitely the most shocking increase in strength he had ever experienced since he was young. Lower abdomen dantian. Lin Feng was unaware of the continuous influx of elemental energy in his dantian. It was as if a piece of ice was being melted, bringing with it waves of heat that turned into a red mist that spread to every part of his body. However, Lin Feng was unaware of this. Early in the morning, the sky was just beginning to brighten. Lin Feng, who had been sitting cross-legged for a long time, slowly opened his eyes and revealed a trace of a smile. The first time I took the initiative to absorb elemental energy, I actually took a full 4 hours before my body was full. It is said that an ordinary person can absorb elemental energy for 3 hours, which is already considered good. As expected, the stronger the body, the more elemental energy one can absorb. Standing up, Lin Feng clenched his fists and felt his unfamiliar body. His muscles were refined and taut, as if he had become much stronger. His eyes could not help but shine. Suddenly, Lin Feng directly threw out a punch. The speed of the punch was astonishing, and the sound of it breaking through the air was extremely powerful. This punch is definitely above 1100 Jin. Lin Feng smiled with satisfaction. He knew his own body well, and his feelings would not lie. However, as to how much he had improved, he still needed to go through a detailed test. It's time to go home. I wonder if my younger brother has woken up. His right foot stepped on the ground, and his body shot out like an arrow from a bow. With a whoosh sound, Lin Feng scuttled out of the cave. The afterimage was enough to prove that his speed had also increased tremendously. The protagonist has become stronger. Roar, roar. Brothers and sisters, collect, recommend, quickly smash. Chapter 19. Whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng's face was filled with joy as he dashed through the forest like a sharp arrow. Fast, too fast. Lin Feng couldn't help but let out a long cry. His strength might be hard to estimate now, but the effect was immediate. My speed has increased by more than twice. Lin Feng's eyebrows relaxed, and his expression was full of joy. Now, I have almost reached the standard of a beginner martial warrior. Lin Feng muttered in his heart. Yesterday's scene couldn't help but appear in his mind. His eyes instantly emitted a cold light. Lin Dongbiao, this matter is not over. Lin Feng's proud figure slowly disappeared. The extreme increase in his strength made him even more confident. A familiar pebble-shaped stone appeared in front of him. Lin Feng slowed down his footsteps and jumped onto the stone. His right foot stomped hard. Bang! The strong and powerful explosive force made Lin Feng jump 3 meters high. He actually jumped directly over the mountain rock. Lin Feng's mouth moved and a slight smile appeared on his face. Originally, he needed to use the strength of his hand to jump over the mountain rock a second time. Now he could jump over a 3-meter-high boulder with the explosive force of his legs. The increase in his strength was quite obvious. In front of him was the familiar home. Lin Feng glanced around and suddenly saw his mother, Lin Wanqing, pacing back and forth at the entrance of the cave with an anxious expression. His expression suddenly changed. Lin Feng's heart twisted. He had a bad feeling. Feng Lin Wanqing looked shocked and said anxiously, "Not good. Shui is missing." Bang! Lin Feng's head exploded. His body trembled violently, and his hands and feet were cold. How could this be? Mother, what's going on? Lin Feng forced himself to calm down, but his heart was pounding. About a quarter of an hour ago, Yun'er woke up and happily went to fetch water. Lin Wanqing looked flustered and said anxiously, but, she still hasn't come back. Lin Feng's face turned pale. Going out from the house to fetch water, the round trip did not take more than the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Something must have happened. I don't know what to do. Lin Wanqing was so anxious that tears were about to fall. Don't worry, mother. Gently patting his mother's trembling back, Lin Feng's expression turned serious as he firmly said, You go back and take care of your younger brother. Leave my younger sister to me. Don't worry, I will definitely bring my sister back. Standing up straight, Lin Feng's expression was cold and awe-inspiring. His bright eyes seemed to be forcefully suppressing his anger. With a swoosh sound, he instantly whistled out like a hurricane. It must be him, Lin Dongbiao. Clenching his teeth, Lin Feng's speed soared. It was as if there was a raging fire burning in his heart. His body leaped, facing the incoming fine branches. He didn't slow down at all. His arms stretched out, and like an enraged bull, he directly knocked them aside. Chi. Two bright red wounds appeared on his arms, but Lin Feng didn't feel anything at all. I didn't look for you, but you dare to step on my doorstep. Grinding his teeth, Lin Feng's eyes emitted a cold light. You dare to touch my family. I will definitely make you pay the heaviest price. This isn't good, right? Lin Dongbiao said with a trembling voice. Shut up. Xiaoban's expression was ferocious, and the squirming rat spots on his face looked very disgusting. Looking down at the small and delicate body on the ground, he stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. His eyes were full of lust. Obediently wait by the side. When I'm done, I will let you have some fun too. Lin Dongbiao's face was pale. Although he was lustful, he was even more afraid of death. Yesterday, Lin Feng's ferocious appearance was still fresh in his mind. It was as if he wanted to cut him into 1,000 pieces. Rape his little sister? Even if Lin Dongbiao had 10,000 guts, he wouldn't dare. TSK. This little girl is quite beautiful. Xiaoban's bony hands brushed Lin Shueyer's waist, and with a rip, he tore off her outer clothes. Looking at the tender and smooth skin of the girl's lower abdomen, Xiaoban gulped and said with a lewd smile, Not bad. Not bad at all. I didn't expect that bastard to have such a good little sister. Since he made me so miserable, I will collect some interest first. Just as he was about to take off his pants, suddenly, pong, a thunderous sound rang out. The door was shattered, and the beams of the house seemed to be trembling. A towering figure appeared with a loud bang, accompanied by flying debris. Looking at the scene in front of him, Lin Feng's hands and feet instantly turned cold. His body trembled, and his heart felt as if it had been torn into countless pieces. Even his heartbeat almost stopped. Lin Feng's eyes bulged in anger, and in an instant, they became ferocious. His head exploded, and his eyes became incomparably red. I will kill you all. A mournful voice broke through the roof. Lin Feng's fists fiercely smashed towards Xiaoban with a sharp sound. In an instant, Lin Dongbiao's face was filled with shock, and he staggered and fell to the ground. However, Xiaoban was quite calm. The lewd look in his bright eyes disappeared. His body moved slightly, and he easily dodged Lin Feng's fists. In an instant, his right leg swept out. Bang! Lin Feng only felt a sharp pain in his right leg. His body tilted, and he was about to fall to the ground. Damn it! There was no time to react. Lin Feng's left hand supported himself on the ground, and his body suddenly jumped back. At this time, a huge fist suddenly appeared in front of him, and a fierce wind rushed towards him. Unable to dodge, Lin Feng clenched his teeth and raised his right arm to block. However, he suddenly felt an intense, numbing pain from his arm to his chest. His internal organs seemed to be twisted together. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body fell heavily to the ground. The intense pain immediately woke Lin Feng up. His vision was hazy and blurry. Lin Feng shook his head fiercely and finally saw the ugly face in front of him. It's him. Lin Feng felt a chill in his heart. As his examiner and the warrior closest to him, Lin Feng had a deep impression of Qiu Ban. I've been waiting for you for a long time, Brad. The corner of Qiu Ban's mouth rose in disdain. He shook his head, as if the battle just now was just a warm-up for him. In fact, Qiu Ban did not feel good. His right fist felt as if it had hit a piece of iron. Damn it, his physical strength is definitely above 3 titanium. This brat must have succeeded in cultivating elemental energy. Qiu Ban remembered Lin Feng's physical strength very clearly. Lin Feng clenched his teeth and stood up. In a split second, countless thoughts rose in his mind. His gaze swept over his sister. Lin Feng suddenly felt his blood boil. He angrily said, "What did you do to my sister?" "I didn't have time to start." Qiu Ban lightly clicked his tongue, and with a trace of regret, his body shot out like a cannonball. He coldly snorted and said, "But it's better to kill you and then enjoy you. Stop dreaming." Lin Feng angrily shouted and raised his fist to meet Qiu Ban's attack. His heart slightly relaxed. He was glad that his sister had not been humiliated. However, Lin Feng understood that this was only temporary. If he lost this battle, his own death would be secondary. His sister would be humiliated by this beast. I definitely cannot lose. Lin Feng clenched his teeth and said to himself. The two figures merged together in an instant. Qiu Ban's speed was extremely fast. He threw out 2 whip-like legs and fiercely attacked Lin Feng. So fast, the sharp sound of breaking air seemed to pierce through the eardrums. Lin Feng's expression changed. The leg whip was so fast that it was impossible to dodge. Just as it was about to hit, Lin Feng's head shook. Ziyao's footsteps seemed to be in slow motion. Her continuous movements and wonderful footsteps made Lin Feng's body seem to be controlled by a mysterious force. Her movements seemed awkward, but Lin Feng dodged Qiu Ban's whip kick without any deviation. What? Qiu Ban's expression changed greatly. He did not expect Lin Feng to be able to dodge his attack with his strength. He immediately roared in anger. His voice was like thunder. Lin Feng's body quivered, and he suddenly woke up from that strange feeling. Just as he was inexplicably shocked, the whip kick in front of him broke through the air like a python's bite. It was as fast as the wind, and Lin Feng's face instantly turned pale. There was no way to dodge. Bang! After the fierce collision, Lin Feng felt a sharp pain in his heart. His left leg felt like it did not belong to him, and his body completely lost its balance. At this moment, a huge fist appeared in front of him. In an instant, a huge force hit his lower abdomen, and his body felt like it was about to explode. Lin Feng fiercely spat out a mouthful of blood. His expression changed greatly. Suddenly, a scorching hot feeling came over him. His head shook violently, and his soul seemed to be trembling. Lin Feng felt as if his lower abdomen was burning with a flame. The scorching feeling continued to expand, like a prairie fire that instantly spread throughout his body. This feeling was familiar. It was as if Lin Feng had returned to the time when he fell ill in the scorching cave. But it was 100 times more terrifying. The pain instantly expanded and expanded again. From a prairie fire to a monstrous fire, it was as if his entire body was burning. Lin Feng roared heartbreakingly. The intense pain caused his body to completely collapse. However, Lin Feng's blood-red eyes were still ferocious. His strong willpower allowed him to retain a trace of consciousness. It was a consciousness that came from his body's instincts. He could not fall. Once he failed, everything would be over. Shueya! In his heart, Lin Feng's soul seemed to be shouting. His sister's voice, appearance, and everything about his sister kept appearing in his mind. It was as if they were branded deeply. In an instant, Lin Feng's right hand actually emitted a ball of fire without any warning. The fiery red color burned fiercely, covering his entire right hand. It was incomparably horrifying. Go to hell. Lin Feng hysterically roared. That was an instinctive attack. At this moment, Lin Feng had almost completely lost consciousness, but that punch was still thrown out. Xiaoban's face was filled with horror as he looked at the terrifying ball of fire in Lin Feng's hand. His body trembled violently, and his legs felt as if they did not belong to him. He opened his mouth to say something, but he could no longer make sound. The fiery red color grew bigger and bigger in front of his eyes. In an instant, completely covered. Chi, chi, chi. The raging fire burned fiercely. Lin Dongbiao was dumbstruck as he looked at the 4-meter-tall flame. His lower body was already completely soaked, and his trembling body was bone-chilling. He did not dare to believe what he was seeing. A person who was originally alive was actually burned to ashes in an instant. This was a beginner martial warrior. Fear came from the bottom of his heart. Lin Dongbiao's eyes trembled as he looked at Lin Feng. When he saw the fiery red color on his right hand, Lin Dongbiao looked as if he had seen a ghost. He frantically screamed and used his hands and feet to crawl towards the door, staggering as he ran for his life. He did not see that at this moment, Lin Feng's eyes had already lost all of their luster. The first episode has ended. The main character has begun to show his might. Here, I shamelessly ask for a recommendation vote. Please add me to your collection. Chapter 20. Lin Feng had fainted. At this moment, waves of powerful flames continuously gushed out from Lin Feng's dantian in his lower abdomen. They were like fire dragons that ran all over his body and instantly merged with every part of his body. Under the baptism of this powerful flame, Lin Feng's bones, blood, skin, and internal organs all underwent drastic changes. Every single cell was rapidly dividing, strengthening, and dividing again. This was 100 times faster than when he was absorbing origin energy. Logically speaking, his body should not be able to withstand such drastic changes. However, under the fusion of that powerful flame, although Lin Feng's bones were shattered, they were instantly regenerated. Although blood continuously seeped out, new blood was quickly created. His skin was cracked and broken, but the cells continued to divide, and the new skin became stronger and more elastic. Everything was like a metabolism that was methodically carried out. Most importantly, because he was unconscious, Lin Feng did not feel any pain. Unconsciousness was actually a natural protection for the body. Lin Feng's eyelashes moved slightly, and with a swish, he opened his eyes. Where is this? Lin Feng quickly regained consciousness and looked at the sky. In an instant, the wood grain on the roof was imprinted in his eyes. It was incomparably clear, as if it was right in front of his eyes. He could hear the rustling sound of the wind blowing through the leaves, and even the sound of insects chirping could be heard. My vision, my hearing. Lin Feng was shocked. No, sister. In an instant, Lin Feng's mind quivered, and he abruptly straightened his body. Thinking about everything that had just happened, Lin Feng's heart suddenly sped up. He looked around, and suddenly, he discovered an incomparably familiar figure. Shueya! With an urgent shout, Lin Feng flew over. He saw that his sister was still lying flat on the ground, as if she was sleeping peacefully. Although her clothes were torn, revealing the white and tender skin of her lower abdomen, the other parts of her body were still intact, as if she had not been violated. Letting out a long breath, Lin Feng finally calmed down. The scene from before suddenly appeared in his mind. I killed him just now? The memory in Lin Feng's mind made him uncertain. Lin Feng raised both of his hands and stared at them without blinking. He was stunned, feeling incredulous. My hand can produce flames? Just as he was feeling puzzled, in an instant, Lin Feng actually felt a scorching aura in his lower abdomen. That power seemed familiar. What a familiar feeling. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself, as if it was a part of his body. His eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. With a thought in his mind, Hua, a flame suddenly burst out his palm. The fiery red color was filled with arrogance and malevolence. Lin Feng was immediately startled. The sensation in his heart disappeared, and the flame disappeared with a chi sound. It came quickly, but it also left quickly. However, Lin Feng's expression was incomparably shocked. The shock was too great. What is this? Why do I have such terrifying power? Lin Feng's breathing became hurried. He felt his heartbeat quicken and his blood vessels expand. So the memory is real. Gradually, Lin Feng's breathing calmed down, and he calmed down. After the fright, what was left was a mixture of surprise and joy. This flame was like a part of his body. It would come when he called it, and go when he waved it. He could control it at will. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Who? A blazing flame suddenly appeared in his palm. Lin Feng could feel its temperature, but the strange thing was his palm didn't feel any burning or scalding. Lin Feng tried to throw the flame forward. The fiery red color drew a parabola and landed on a chair. In an instant, it burned fiercely as if it was devouring its prey. In the blink of an eye, the chair was completely burned. Not even ashes were left. Lin Feng was completely shocked. What a terrifying power! With his eyes shining, Lin Feng was completely immersed in the excitement of obtaining this mysterious power. In an instant, two flames ignited in his hands. With a wave of his arms, the two flames flew to both sides. Chi! Chi! The walls and cabinets were engulfed in the blink of an eye. The blazing flame soared into the sky and illuminated Lin Feng's eyes. The wall that I couldn't even leave a mark with my full strength was burned to nothingness? What a terrifying power! It's much stronger than a beginner martial warrior's attack. If it was used directly on a person, Lin Feng's mind suddenly flashed with the image of Ban being burned by the flame. He instinctively felt his hair stand on end. The power of this mysterious flame was far beyond his imagination. Although he didn't know how strong it was, he was certain that a beginner martial warrior couldn't withstand it. In an instant, two more flames condensed in Lin Feng's hands. They burned more vigorously than the previous two and made crackling sounds. Lin Feng's arms shook. The two flames drew an arc and landed on the ground with a loud bang. In the blink of an eye, the flames overflowed into the sky. So, the intensity of the flames can be controlled. Lin Feng nodded. Just as he was deep in thought, all of a sudden, a burst of hot air hit him. Lin Feng's expression changed. Not good. The house is burning. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. The light of the fire around him was so bright that his face turned red. Lin Feng didn't care about anything else. He picked up his sister and ran away. His body shot out like a cannonball and disappeared without a trace. So fast, so fast. Running on the mountain path, Lin Feng couldn't help but change his expression. Carrying his sister with both hands, his speed was twice as fast as absorbing elemental energy. Moreover, he wasn't even using his full strength. Once he ran at full speed, Lin Feng was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control his astonishing speed. This is unbelievable. What happened to my body? Lin Feng's face was full of surprise and doubt. He only remembered that he was punched in the stomach by Ban. Then, his whole body felt like it was being burned by a raging fire. It was as if the pain was multiplied by 1,000 times. Then, his memory started to blur. It's most likely that strange disease. Lin Feng thought to himself. Other than that, he couldn't think of any other possibility. At that moment, a huge rock appeared in front of him. It was 4 to 5 meters high. Originally, Lin Feng would avoid it every time he went home. However, this time he didn't slow down. He jumped lightly and stepped on the ground with his right foot. His body actually rose by 6 meters and landed steadily on the huge rock. It's so easy. Even Lin Feng himself couldn't believe it. Looking at the familiar cave in the distance, Lin Feng nimbly jumped down and dove down. In the cave, Lin Jie was lazily stretching himself. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew his hair and made his body tremble. Lin Jie looked at the entrance of the cave and couldn't help but scratch his head in confusion. Lin Feng carried his sister with both hands and reached the deepest part of the cave in just a few jumps. His gaze fell on the small wooden house on the right. Lin Feng directly rushed in. He saw that his mother was safe and sound, and his brother had already gotten up and was leaning on the bed. Lin Feng's expression relaxed, and he couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. As long as his family was safe, everything was fine. Feng, what happened to Shuera? Lin Wanqing's expression changed. She's fine. She just fainted temporarily. Lin Feng carefully placed Shuera on her bed and gently took off her torn clothes and covered her with a blanket. Looking at her beautiful face, Lin Feng secretly felt lucky. Fortunately, he had arrived in time, or else his sister's life would really be ruined, and he would probably feel guilty for the rest of his life. Brother, what happened? Lin Yun's voice was a little weak. It's nothing. Lin Feng shook his head. He didn't intend to say anything about his sister. If Shuei knew about it, it would probably leave a shadow in her heart in the future. The only person who witnessed this process was Qiu Ban, who was already dead. The only one left was Lin Dongbiao. Thinking of this, Lin Feng's gaze couldn't help but fall on his brother's face. Looking at his sickly pale face, his heart couldn't help but ache. His brother was already unfortunate enough to be blind since birth, but he still had to suffer humiliation again and again. First it was Lin Nanhu, then it was Lin Dongbiao. It's my fault, it's all my fault. Lin Feng clenched his fists, his body trembling. Because of his negligence, he didn't protect his family well, causing his brother to be injured and his mother to be humiliated. Clenching his teeth, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly became cold, and his killing intent surged out. First it was his brother Lin Yun. Then it was his sister Lin Shi. If he didn't kill him, how could he face himself? Lin Dongbiao. A cold voice seemed to come from an ice cellar. Mother, brother, wait for me to come back. His dark eyes were burning. Lin Feng's expression made Lin Wanqing unable to speak the words that were about to come out of her mouth. Looking at the familiar figure gradually fading away, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Unknowingly, her son had become an indomitable man. His temper is exactly the same as his father's. Lin Wanqing inexplicably showed a gratified smile. His brother's shouts were still ringing in his ears, but Lin Feng had already stepped out of the door. He would never let his family live in fear all day long. His fiery eyes blazing, Lin Feng clenched his fists, feeling the fiery aura in his lower abdomen, and couldn't help but feel more confident. The mysterious flame in his body had such terrifying power that even he himself was deeply shocked. With this trump card, what was there to fear? Lin Dongbiao, it's time to settle this score. Thinking of his brother Lin Yun's miserable state, thinking of Shu almost being humiliated, Lin Feng's eyes were blood red, and his hatred suddenly surged up like a tide. For him, his family was his reverse scale, and he would never allow anyone to touch it. The western part of the mountaintop. This was the best area on the mountaintop, and also the most expensive area. In such a large area, only a dozen families lived here, and all of them were the wealthiest and most powerful in the clan. Among them was the clan leader Lin Xianglong's younger sister, Lin Yuru, Madame Yuru. Because Lin Xianglong was not in the clan all year round, all the clan affairs, big or small, were handled by Madame Yuru. Uncle Chung, when I was not around these 2 days, did anything happen at home? Madame Yuru casually asked as she calculated the accounts. Uncle Chung wanted to say something, but stopped. Madame Yuru raised her head, and a frown appeared on her graceful face. Dongbiao got into trouble again? Uncle Chung sighed softly, and the scene of Lin Dongbiao being beaten up by Lin Feng that day appeared in his mind, but he didn't know where to start. At this moment, there was a sudden burst of cracking sounds from afar, and a fat figure staggered over with a face full of fear. Mother! Save me, mother! Lin Dongbiao shouted hysterically. Please recommend it. Please add it to your collection. I hope everyone can support Xiao Xiao and Refining the Starry Sky by Fire. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 21. What happened? Madame Yuru's expression was extremely serious. She had never seen her son like this. Mother, Save me, save me. Lin Dongbiao's voice trembled violently. The image of Lin Feng killing Qiuban with one punch suddenly appeared in his mind. Thinking of that terrifying and ferocious flame, his body couldn't help but tremble. He pulled his mother's clothes tightly and said in horror, Lin Feng, he killed, and he wants to kill me. Mother, you have to save me. Lin Feng? Madame Yuru's expression changed instantly when she heard this name. What happened? Tell me slowly. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Madam, Uncle Chung, you don't have to say anymore. Madame Yuru shook her head helplessly. How could I not know my son's character? He must have framed and attacked first. Who else can he blame? Of all the people he could provoke, he had to provoke Lin Feng. Lin Feng, he shouldn't really dare to kill young master, right? Uncle Chung hesitated. He really dares. Madame Yuru sighed lightly and revealed a bitter smile. I just came back from Chihuahua Town and met Big Brother. This time, Lin Feng was in the limelight. Not only did he pass the preparatory martial artist assessment, he was also selected by the Shaoyang martial sect. With such a background, who would dare to touch him? Uncle Qing couldn't help but be stunned. Although he didn't know how powerful the Shaoyang martial sect was, he knew that a martial artist was a transcendent existence that wasn't restricted by the clan rules. At this moment, a burst of hurried footsteps could be heard. A servant hurriedly ran in and said, Madam, it's not good. The east courtyard is on fire. What? Madame Yuru was instantly shocked. Before she finished speaking, a burst of noise and fighting sounds could be heard from outside. Madame Yuru's expression changed abruptly as a bad premonition arose in her heart. She looked at Butler Chung, and the two of them had the same thought. He's here. Bang, bang. Their fists and legs collided. Lin Feng's eyes shone with a fierce light. Facing the incoming side kick, he didn't dodge or dodge. His right hand blocked the kick, and his right leg kicked out like lightning. With one kick, the guard was kicked 10 meters away. At this time, the huge fist on the left was already close to his face. Lin Feng raised his head and suddenly punched out with his right fist. Although it was launched later, it arrived first. Immediately, a muffled groan sounded and the guard fell heavily to the ground. At this moment, there were more than a dozen guards lying around him. Lin Feng had indeed shown mercy. Otherwise, with his current strength, these people would have already died. His eyes shone brightly as he looked forward. The remaining guards all kept quiet out of fear. I'll say it one more time. I'm looking for Lin Dongbiao. If you insist on obstructing me, don't blame me for being impolite. Lin Feng said coldly. His sonorous voice fell into the hearts of every guard, like a deep iron imprint. Lin Feng stepped forward, and all the guards retreated to the sides. They were indeed scared out of their wits. Although there were more than a dozen guards, none of them could withstand Lin Feng's one move. In the blink of an eye, they were lying on the ground. This strength was too terrifying. Lin Feng calmly took a step forward. It was as if he had entered a realm where no one could stop him. The increase in his strength had caused his confidence to grow as well. If it was in the past, he definitely wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. But now it was different. He was here to find trouble. When Lin Feng's eyes met, he saw a familiar figure walking towards him, exuding a sense of elegance and grace. Lin Feng's expression froze, and he stopped. Madame Yuru. Lin Feng's voice was neither servile nor overbearing. What's the matter, Lin Feng? What's the matter that requires such a big fuss? Madame Yuru glanced around and smiled. Looking at Madame Yuru indifferently, Lin Feng's expression was very calm. In the past, he was incomparably respectful to the leader of this clan and only felt that she was high and mighty. But now, he didn't feel anything. Madame Yuru, please hand over Lin Dongbiao. Lin Feng's eyes were burning as he said word by word. This person wrongly accused my mother of stealing money, beat up my brother, Lin Yin. After the matter was exposed, he kidnapped my sister and hired people to kill me. What he has done is simply inhumane. Lin Feng didn't care at all. The person standing in front of him was Lin Dongbiao's mother. Madame Yuru's expression was calm. I will give you an explanation for this matter. You can go back first. Don't worry, the clan has its rules. Even if he is my son, I will not be biased. Explanation? Lin Feng smiled coldly. Madame Yuru, don't think that I, Lin Feng, am a 3-year-old child. Clan rules. Huh, those are just tricks of you people in power. Lin Feng's eyes revealed a trace of killing intent as he stepped forward. Frightened, Butler Chung hurriedly stood in front of Madame Yuru with a frightened expression. Today, even if I have to turn the entire Lin village upside down, I will find Lin Dongbiao. Lin Feng's voice was resolute and decisive. And then? Madame Yuru asked slowly. Kill. Lin Feng's eyes emitted a cold glint. Lin Feng didn't say anything else. Everybody could clearly feel his murderous intent. There was no need to doubt it. Everybody believed that Lin Feng would do what he said. Looking at the young man in front of her, Madame Yuru's eyes were indifferent, but she sighed deeply in her heart. The once ignorant youth had grown up. The current Lin Feng was someone that even she had to avoid. You may leave. Madame Yuru waved her hand. Butler Ching immediately understood and led the guards away. In a split second, everyone had left. Only Lin Feng and Madame Yuru were left in the large garden. There was complete silence. Little Feng, did Madame Yuru treat you badly? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Various memories of the past suddenly appeared in his mind, and he couldn't help but shake his head. Although Madame Yuru was the leader of the clan, she was an amiable person and didn't have the slightest arrogance. Then, did she treat your family badly? Lin Feng frowned slightly. He knew that Madame Yuru was beginning to move him emotionally. However, it was true that he owed her a favor. In the past, Madame Yuru had helped his family more than once. Later, she even provided an easy job for his mother and younger brother. She never treated them harshly or delayed their pay. Every time Madame Yuru was mentioned, his mother would always be full of praise. As for himself, he was also grateful to Madame Yuru. Actually, it's all my fault. I usually spoiled this child too much, which led to him being lawless and committing such heinous acts. Madame Yuru sighed softly. At this moment, she looked like an ordinary mother. Lin Feng, for Madame's sake, can you give Dongbiao a way out? Lin Feng had mixed feelings in his heart. He never thought that there would be a day when Madame Yuru would beg him so humbly. After all, she was the leader of the Lin village. She had always been respected by others. When had she ever been like this? It's because I'm a martial artist, Lin Feng thought to himself. If he didn't have sufficient strength, how could he intimidate Madame Yuru and make her bow? All of this was built on a foundation, martial artist. If the target of Lin Dongbiao's trouble was changed to someone else, what would the situation be like? Would Madame Yuru still be so humble? He didn't know. Lin Feng only knew that the situation was completely in his hands. The only thing that mattered was his choice. If Madame Yuru insists on protecting Lin Dongbiao and sends him away, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to find him. In fact, I do owe Madame Yuru a huge favor, Lin Feng thought to himself. Moreover, I don't have much time to waste now. Lin Feng understood that the most important thing for him now was to improve his strength. Only by becoming stronger could he be like now, holding his fate firmly in his hands and not being bullied by others. Even if I kill Lin Dongbiao, this matter will definitely not end. Madame Yuru will definitely not let it go. I'm not afraid, but I can't always stay in the village to protect father, mother, and my younger siblings. Lin Feng frowned. Moreover, in the Lin family village, Lin Nanhu and I have a grudge. In the future, trouble will come one after another. It will always be a place of conflict. With a turn of his mind, countless thoughts appeared in Lin Feng's mind. He didn't dare to be careless. One wrong move, and the whole game would be lost. All kinds of pros and cons, all kinds of hypotheses, and even all kinds of outcomes were simulated in his mind. Lin Feng had to consider everything thoroughly because he was carrying a family on his shoulders. Even if he killed Lin Dongbiao and vented his anger, so what? As long as he stayed in the Lin family village, it was impossible to predict what would happen next. 3 conditions. Lin Feng was silent for a moment. He looked at Madame Yuru and said, as long as you can fulfill these 3 conditions, I'll give you face and let Lin Dongbiao live. From then on, the grudge will be settled. Say it, Madame Yuru said slowly. The first condition, I want Lin Dongbiao to kneel in front of my mother, younger siblings, and sincerely repent. Lin Feng's eyes were cold. Madame Yuru's face was serious. This must be done. Lin Feng nodded. The second condition, Lin Dongbiao must accept the punishment according to the clan's rules. The 12th rule of the clan is that if the crime of beating up a member of the clan is serious, he will be beaten 100 times with a rod. The punishment will be carried out in the clan's disciplinary hall, and all the clan members will witness it with their own eyes. This, Madame Yuru looked troubled. 100 beatings is too much. Dongbiao's body is too weak. I'm afraid. There's no room for discussion. Lin Feng cut her off and said firmly, if he did it, he must bear the consequences. 100 beatings won't kill him. But I'm afraid he will have to lie in bed for 3 months. Madame Yuru sighed softly. After hesitating for a while, she reluctantly nodded and agreed. After all, Lin Feng's request was reasonable. Seeing that Madame Yuru had agreed, Lin Feng's expression softened slightly. He didn't deliberately target him. These two conditions were basically according to the clan's rules. Perhaps it was a little too heavy, but Lin Dongbiao must repay his younger brother tenfold for his injuries. The third condition, Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and he said slowly, I want 1,000 gold coins as compensation. What? Madame Yuru's expression changed. She didn't expect Lin Feng's last request to be this. What compensation needed 1,000 gold coins? It was an exorbitant demand. Lin Feng looked at Madame Yuru with an indifferent expression. He saw that her face was alternating between green and white. It was obvious that she was very angry with him. Even if Madame Yuru was the wealthiest person in the clan, 1,000 gold coins was still quite heavy for her. But Lin Feng believed that for her son, she would definitely be willing to take it out. This is too much. Madame Yuru frowned slightly. 1,000 gold coins, not one less. Lin Feng shook his head with a serious expression. This was the lowest price he knew of in Fire Chihua Town. As long as he had 1,000 gold coins, he could buy a house in Fire Chihua Town and let his whole family move in. They wouldn't have to live in a cave or live in fear in the Lin family village and be bullied. Compared to the mountaintop, Fire Chihua Town was much better in terms of environment. His younger brother and sister could enjoy a carefree life, and his parents could live a carefree life. And all this required an extremely large amount of money, 1,000 gold coins. Lin Feng looked at Madame Yuru. The latter hesitated for a long time, but finally gave in. All right, I agree to these 3 conditions. Her voice was heavy and her expression was ugly. Lin Feng could tell that Madame Yuru had no choice but to agree. Once these 3 conditions were fulfilled, there would be no more cordiality between them. But so what? With this sum of money, his family would soon move out of the Lin family village. From then on, they would have nothing to do with each other. I'm shamelessly asking for a recommendation vote again. Everyone just needs to click lightly. Xiao Xiao is very grateful here. Chapter 22. After returning home, Lin Feng pushed open the door with a creak and stepped in. When he looked over, he saw that his younger sister Shikar had already woken up and was sitting beside his younger brother Lin Yun's bed with his mother. Lin Feng couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. Feng, brother, are you feeling better, Shui? Lin Feng asked softly. A sweet smile bloomed on Lin Shui-er's face as she shook her head. Shui-er is fine. Thank you, brother. Silly girl, what's there to thank me for? Lin Feng smiled as he rubbed his younger sister's little head. His gaze moved slightly to look at his mother's slightly tired face, and his heart couldn't help but tighten. These past 2 days, he had caused his mother to worry too much for his younger brother, sister, and his matters. But not long later, his mother would be able to enjoy happiness. Are you all right? Lin Wanqing revealed a worried expression. Lin Feng smiled indifferently and turned his head. Mother, look who I brought. Along with Lin Feng's voice, 2 figures slowly walked in from outside the door. One had a calm expression and wore luxurious clothes, while the other had a terrified expression and seemed slightly anxious and uneasy. It was precisely Madame Yuru and Lin Dongbiao. Madame Yuru. Lin Wanqing covered her mouth in shock. Madame Yuru nodded slightly and seemed to be in a bad mood. Her gaze moved towards Lin Dongbiao as she reprimanded. "Why aren't you kneeling?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned, and even Lin Yun's expression changed. Lin Feng looked towards his mother, Lin Wanqing, and nodded. The latter instantly faintly understood in her heart. Lin Dongbiao's face was pale as he hesitantly raised his head. However, he suddenly caught a glimpse of Lin Feng's pair of eyes that were emitting a fierce light. In an instant, he was scared out of his wits and fell to his knees with a thump. "I'm sorry, I was blinded by greed and became greedy for money. I wronged you all. It's all my fault." Lin Dongbiao frantically apologized. His expression was incomparably shocked, as he was completely scared out of his wits by Lin Feng. Lin Wanqing, Lin Shui'er, and Lin Yun were all dumbfounded. Mother, brother, sister. Lin Feng glanced at his family members and said, "In 3 days, Lin Dongbiao will be punished according to the clan's rules in the discipline hall. All the clansmen will bear witness. He will be beaten 100 times with a rod until his skin is torn and his flesh is connected." Brother. Lin Yun's expression changed. Lin Wanqing couldn't bear it and hurriedly went forward to help Lin Dongbiao up. However, the latter's body trembled and refused to stand up. Looking at Lin Dongbiao, Lin Feng's gaze was heavy. "Let me ask you, who was that person this morning?" This mystery remained in Lin Feng's mind. He didn't understand why the warrior in charge of his assessment would appear in the Lin family village and even come to kill him. There was definitely something he didn't know about. That person? I don't know that person. Lin Dongbiao hurriedly shook his head. "You don't know him?" Lin Feng frowned. "I really don't know him. I only know that he is a beginner martial warrior." Lin Dongbiao's face was deathly pale as he hurriedly said, "It was my cousin. Cousin told me to do this. Cousin even gave me a lot of money. He said that as long as I paid, he would help me vent my anger. However, I didn't expect that he would be killed by you." As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. A beginner martial warrior was killed by Lin Feng? It can't be. Lin Feng's eyes emitted a deep darkness. At this moment, he finally understood. "So it was you, Lin Nan who?" Lin Feng gritted his teeth. Scenes from the preparatory martial warrior assessment appeared in his mind. When these two incidents were connected, all the doubts and questions were easily solved. No wonder, no wonder. At this moment, Lin Feng was very glad that he didn't kill Lin Dongbiao on impulse. Otherwise, he would still be in the dark, and Lin Nanhu would be able to reap the benefits. What was even more fortunate was that he asked for the 1,000 gold coins in time. If his family continued to stay in the Lin family village, they would undoubtedly be accompanied by a tiger. It was too dangerous. "Lin Nanhu, let's wait and see." Lin Feng clenched his fist. He would remember this grudge. "Brother, you can already kill a beginner martial warrior now?" Lin Yun asked in surprise. "Yes, I think so." To be honest, Lin Feng didn't dare to confirm it himself. However, Xiaoban was indeed dead. No wonder Madame Yuru was so afraid. Lin Yun suddenly understood. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Indeed, strength was too important. If he didn't have enough strength, he wouldn't complain even if he was beaten to death, let alone ask for an explanation. Unlike now, even Madame Yuru had to bow down. People were just so realistic. Forget it, Feng. Let people off when possible. Moreover, Madame Yuru has always treated us well. Lin Wanqing was a little soft-hearted. "Mother, bad people should be punished badly. Lin Dongbiao deserved it." Lin Shui'er said angrily. "Shui'er is right." Lin Feng's eyes suddenly shone. "I'm already merciful enough not to kill him. If it wasn't for Madame Yuru, I wouldn't have let him off. He should be punished for his wrongdoings." "But brother, after all, we live in the Lin family village. It's not good to shed all pretense of cordiality," Lin Yun said worriedly. Lin Wanqing felt the same. She didn't think about it earlier, but now that Lin Yun mentioned it, she couldn't help but worry. After all, Madame Yuru was powerful enough in the Lin family village. With a faint smile, Lin Feng's eyes slowly swept across the simple wooden house. He smiled indifferently and said, "So be it. After all, we will leave the Lin family village in 3 days." The three of them were stunned. Leave the Lin family village? Brother, where are we going? Lin Shuier was a little confused. To Chihua Town. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Since this was a matter of great joy, there was no need for him to hide it. As long as he got the 1,000 gold coins in 3 days, he could leave immediately. From then on, he would have nothing to do with the Lin family village. Lin Yun was stunned. Brother, you didn't extort money from Madame Yuru, right? Lin Feng softly said yes. His expression was calm. How much? 1,000 gold coins. Lin Feng smiled and stretched out a finger. 1,000? Gold coins. Crash. The bowl in Lin Wanqing's hand suddenly fell to the ground. The sound of the bowl falling was incomparably crisp in the wooden house. The three of them looked extremely funny with their mouths wide open. 1,000 gold coins. To them, this was an astronomical figure that they didn't even dare to think about. Brother, you're too ruthless. Lin Yun was speechless. At this moment, Lin Wanqing was completely stunned. Her heart was in turmoil, and she couldn't calm down. Yay, that's great. On the other hand, Lin Shuier jumped up and down happily. Her tender little face bloomed with a joyful smile. Looking at everyone's rich expressions, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. Once, when his family was eating, they had mentioned countless times how wonderful it would be if they could one day leave the Lin family village and settle down in Fireprayer Town. At that time, it seemed like an unattainable dream. But now, this dream was within reach. In the hot cave, this place had already become Lin Feng's training place. Placing his left leg on top of his right leg, the back of his head slightly retracted and his spine naturally straightened. Lin Feng let out a long sigh of relief and sat cross-legged. He gradually became familiar with this posture. Exhale, inhale. His upper body was empty and his lower body was solid. His body naturally relaxed. To Lin Feng, mastering the method of actively absorbing elemental energy was not difficult. With his first experience and the fact that his body had already tasted meat, Lin Feng quickly felt the presence of elemental energy. His pure elemental energy continuously flowed into his body through his palms, soles of his feet, mouth, nose, ears, and every part of his body. The speed of absorbing elemental energy seems to be faster today. Elemental energy continuously gathered in Lin Feng's body and was instantly devoured by his cells, strengthening, dividing, and strengthening again. His cells continuously became more active and every part of his body was changing. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt an incomparable scorching heat in his lower abdomen. His body felt as if it was on fire. There was a violent ringing in his ears and an extremely violent tremor in the depths of his consciousness. Boom! As if his soul was trembling, Lin Feng suddenly realized that his consciousness had actually arrived at a magical place. This mysterious place was boundless. Around him, a fiery red light was faintly discernible. The crimson color was like a burning flame, and its luster was penetrating. Taking a closer look, one layer after another appeared. It was like a fire lotus with countless layers blooming, stunning, and beautiful. In the center, a cluster of purple flames burned like an eerie fire. Its strange color made one feel aghast. Although it was only a small cluster, Lin Feng felt an extremely intense fear. This purple eerie fire seemed to be able to burn everything. Following the burning of the purple eerie fire, the fire lotus seemed to have bloomed. From inside to outside, the fire slowly spread out. From purple to indigo, from blue to green, and then from yellow to orange. Finally, the outer layer was a bright fiery red. Following the burning of this fiery red flame, a red mist condensed in the surroundings and surrounded the fire lotus, adding a touch of mystery. So if it's this, Lin Feng could easily sense that this red flame was the mysterious flame that he could control. Also, Lin Feng could clearly see that strands of transparent energy were continuously seeping in from all directions. Along with the red mist, they were being devoured by his cells and strengthened their activity. Lin Feng's consciousness could also sense that this transparent energy was the elemental energy that he had absorbed. This transparent energy is elemental energy. In other words, this is my body. Lin Feng was shocked. Then what is this red mist? What surprised him the most was that the strength of this red mist's energy far exceeded that of elemental energy. Lin Feng realized that even without elemental energy, the cells were being devoured and strengthened at an extremely fast speed. They were constantly dividing, strengthening, and dividing again. That's right, it was indeed extremely fast. It was a speed that was beyond imagination. Following the burning of the purple eerie fire and the rotation of the fire lotus, the consumed red mist was instantly replenished. It was as if they formed a perfect cycle, growing and multiplying endlessly. The source was the small cluster of purple eerie fire. The energy provided by this cluster of purple eerie fire is more than 10 times stronger than elemental energy. Lin Feng was greatly shocked. In other words, even if I don't actively absorb elemental energy, my body is constantly cultivating. Moreover, the cultivation speed is frightening. But what is this purple eerie fire? How can it have such a strong energy? On one hand, he was surprised and happy. On the other hand, Lin Feng was also faintly worried. After all, no matter who it was, having such an uncontrollable existence in their body was indeed extremely fearful. Could it be that strange illness? Lin Feng thought to himself, because for the first time today, he did not feel any pain in his lower abdomen. That's right, it's that punch. In an instant, Lin Feng was enlightened. It was precisely because of the battle with Qiu Ban that he inconceivably had the ability to control fire after waking up. Could it be that because of that punch, this cluster of purple eerie fire was released? Lin Feng thought to himself. So, the strange illness disappeared. So, I have the ability to control fire. So, just like the first time I absorbed elemental energy, the first time I absorbed the red mist caused my physical fitness to increase greatly. It had to be said that Lin Feng's ability to analyze and reason was indeed very strong. The truth was more or less like that. However, it was not released, but awakened. Because Lin Feng's strength was not enough, the purple eerie fire had been dormant all this time. It was not until the first time he absorbed elemental energy and reached the physical standards of a beginner martial warrior that the purple eerie fire was stimulated by the outside world that the purple eerie fire was awakened. And even without Qiu Ban's stimulation, as Lin Feng's physical fitness continued to increase, the purple eerie fire would awaken sooner or later. Right now, it was just a little bit earlier. Please recommend, please collect. Also, during the public period, I will update 2 chapters of 6,000 words every day. One chapter is between 0:00 and 0:15 in the morning, and the other chapter is at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I hope everyone will support me. Chapter 23. Lin Family Village Dojo. Hello, Brother Feng. Brother Lin Feng. All the martial artist apprentices in the training hall on the first floor greeted him enthusiastically. Lin Feng nodded with a smile and stepped into the second floor of the dojo. This was where the advanced martial artist apprentices trained. Hi, Feng. Brother Man. Lin Feng warmly greeted him. His gaze shifted to Lin Man's side, and he couldn't help but be surprised. Duh. Linda was the most talented person in this year's coming-of-age ceremony other than Lin Feng. He was already an advanced martial artist apprentice at the age of 18, which was enough to be considered outstanding in the Lin family village. However, he was born at the wrong time and had always been suppressed by Lin Feng. Lin Feng, I will catch up with you. Linda's eyes were filled with unyielding fighting spirit. He could not believe what Lin Jie said. Lin Feng had passed the preparatory martial artist examination. Absolutely impossible. Yes, let's work hard together. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Healthy competition was not a bad thing. Besides, there was not a bad person, just a little arrogant. Lin Feng turned and left. He did not want to stay any longer. This was not a place where he should stay. His destination was the 3rd floor. "Hey, Feng, that's the stairs to the 3rd floor." Lin Man shouted behind him. Linda's face was pale. Seeing was believing. He watched Lin Feng walk up the stairs step by step and disappear from his sight. At this moment, even if he was unwilling, he could only believe this fact. His mouth was full of bitterness. "Brother man, Lin Feng, he has passed the preparatory martial artist examination." "What?" Lin Man's body trembled. The training hall on the 3rd floor was obviously more luxurious. The various testing equipment were also more high-end. For example, the body strength testing equipment on the 2nd floor was the most basic one. 60 titanium was the limit. On the 3rd floor, the maximum pressure could reach 16. 0 titanium, which was 10 times higher. Other than that, the dazzling array of weapons also caused Lin Feng's eyes to blur. Just by looking at the luster and appearance, the quality was already much better than the 2nd floor. As far as the eye could see, there were sabers, swords, axes, spears, staffs, and so on. Even the axes, hooks, forks, whips, and truncheons that could not be seen on the 2nd floor were all available. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he approached the weapon rack where the spears were placed. There were a total of 13 rows of spears. Red tasseled spear, curve point spear, 3-pointed double-edged spear. Lin Feng took out one of them and waved it around. Although there are as many as 18 spears, each one is different. The soaring dragon spear suits me the best. Lin Feng put the 3-pointed, double-edged spear back into its sheath and walked to another row of weapon racks. After carefully measuring the length and width of the spear, he pulled out the soaring dragon spear. After practicing since young, Lin Feng was already used to the leaping dragon spear. The spear seemed simple, but it was actually very complicated. From the streamlined spear body and the shape of the spearhead to the length and width of the spear body, everything differed from person to person. However, the most important thing was the weight of the spear. Why is it so light? Lin Feng weighed the soaring dragon spear and frowned slightly. It felt no different from the one he used during the warrior preparation assessment. However, when he held it in his hand, it seemed to be completely weightless, too light. After putting the soaring dragon spear back into its sheath, Lin Feng pulled out another soaring dragon spear. It's still too light. This one isn't enough either. After trying 5 spears in a row, the weight of each spear was almost the same. Lin Feng could not help but laugh bitterly and shake his head. It seems that my strength has increased too much. None of the soaring dragon spears here are suitable for me. Lin Feng knew that this was because of the rapid increase in his strength. The first time he absorbed elemental energy, his strength nearly doubled. The second time he released the purple flames, his strength increased by a large margin. My original strength was 600 pounds. Now it should be 2,000 pounds. Lin Feng thought to himself. After his strength increased by 3 to 4 times, the soaring dragon spears, which he originally felt were just right, became too light. This was understandable. He looked at the row of soaring dragon spears with slight regret. He did not expect that he would have no spears to use due to the rapid increase in his strength. However, Lin Feng did not feel disappointed. He looked into the distance, and his eyes flickered. I wonder how strong I am now. Lin Feng looked relaxed as he approached the strength testing machine. He looked at the silver-gray Pang Ran machine in front of him. Its body was twice as big as the one on the 2nd floor. Lin Feng calmly stood still and took a deep breath. In a split second, his spine arched like a dragon and his right leg stepped forward. His body strength was gradually channeled, and his right fist suddenly shot out a sharp ray of light. Boom! His fist fell like a meteor, causing the entire machine to shake violently. Lin Feng glanced at it and was surprised. 2750. It actually increased by so much. Lin Feng could not believe it himself. He originally estimated that 2,000 pounds was the limit, but he did not expect it to be 2,750 pounds. One must know that the standard strength of an intermediate martial warrior was only 2,400 pounds. Ha! Lin Feng laughed loudly. This was definitely something to be happy about. In the world of martial warriors, the strong were respected. Strength was the foundation. Lin Feng's face was full of joy, as if he was venting the joy in his heart. He did not accumulate any strength and casually punched the machine with both fists. Bang! 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 A series of heavy and shocking punches sounded. The number on the strength testing machine was constantly changing. 2538, 2470, 2412, 2501. Lin Feng only stopped after punching a dozen times in one breath. He was in high spirits. My strength has increased by so much. I wonder how much my speed and body strength have increased. Lin Feng's eyes lit up with excitement. After all, strength was his weakest point. During the assessment, he had only just passed the passing line. As for his body strength, it had already reached 160 titanium. Evaluation, excellent. Soon, the test results were out. Speed, 4 seconds per 100 meters. Body strength, 3 titanium. My strength has actually reached the standard of an intermediate martial warrior. Lin Feng could not believe it. He clearly knew that after an ordinary martial warrior absorbed elemental energy for the first time, their body strength would generally be close to that of a beginner martial warrior. There were very few who could directly become a beginner martial warrior. But he had actually directly skipped the beginner martial warrior and became an intermediate martial warrior. Unbelievable. The standard of an intermediate martial warrior, 7 seconds per 100 meters, 2,400 strength, 4 titanium. Sure enough, my strongest point is still my body strength. It is actually close to the standard of an advanced martial warrior, 8 titanium. Lin Feng clenched his fists, his eyes burning with passion. The stronger one was, the more confident one would be in the martial warrior combat assessment. With this thought in mind, Lin Feng immediately turned and left. Although his strength had greatly improved, he would not be satisfied with it. He longed to become stronger, like Qin Lai, who no one dared to say a word. He longed to be like the mysterious expert in his mind, who could make the world tremble with a single thrust of a spear. He longed to be no longer so far away from that fairy-like figure in his mind, and what he longed for the most was to let his family live a carefree life. All of this required him to continuously work hard and improve. Lin Feng understood very well the stronger one was, the more one would obtain. After Lin Feng left, a gloomy figure slowly walked out from a sealed room on the 3rd floor. Lin Nanhu. Lin Feng did not know that on the 3rd floor of the dojo, other than the training room for martial warriors, there was another hidden room. It was the place where the clan leaders of the past secluded themselves. Since Lin Xianglong was not there, it was used by Lin Nanhu. What's going on? Lin Feng is still alive? Lin Nanhu frowned. What is Dong Biao doing? Xiaoban hasn't made his move yet. Lin Nanhu's eyes were gloomy and cold as he walked towards the strength testing machine. I can already vaguely sense the elemental energy. In less than 3 days, I will be able to complete the first absorption. By then, with my aptitude, I will definitely be able to break through the standard of a beginner martial warrior. Lin Feng. Even if Qiuban doesn't kill you, I will kill you myself. In Lin Nanhu's heart, Lin Feng was not only his enemy, but also a huge rock blocking his path. He would not be happy if he did not get rid of him. Father isn't here. I have plenty of ways to kill you. Lin Nanhu sneered as he casually glanced at the strength testing machine. In an instant, his eyes widened and his pupils dilated. Lin Nanhu looked at the astonishing number before him and felt his head explode with a boom. No, impossible. How could it be? The machine must be broken. Yes, it must be. The corner of Lin Nanhu's mouth twitched as he staggered towards the speed testing machine. He stared at the number 1 for inch on the mirror and couldn't help but laugh. This must be an illusion. It must be. His body became incomparably heavy. Every step he took made his heart tremble. Lin Nanhu raised his head and looked at the strength testing machine not far away. He suddenly laughed like a madman. Why? Don't. Lin Nanhu's knees fell heavily to the ground. His eyes were blood red, and his face was distorted. That eye-catching 7-3 titanium was like a brand imprinted in his heart, making his body unable to bear the burden. Lin Nanhu didn't dare to imagine that Lin Feng's strength had risen to such a terrifying level. Intermediate martial warrior. Yes, no wonder. Lin Nanhu's expression was sluggish. He said in horror, Qiu Ban must have been killed by him. That must be it. His next target will definitely be me. I have to leave quickly. Lin Nanhu crawled up, bewildered. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. What should I do? Where do I go? Father. Yes, fine father. Lin Nanhu's eyes lit up as if he had found his savior. He hurriedly ran away, begging for recommendation tickets, begging for collection. If you like this book, please support it. Every recommendation ticket is important to Xiao Xiao. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 24. Lin Feng did not know that his careless mistake had scared Lin Nanhu out of his wits. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 3 days, Lin Feng did nothing but cultivate. The only time he had free time was when he went to the clan's disciplinary hall to witness the punishment. Lin Dongbiao was beaten 100 times until his skin and flesh split open. He fainted from the pain and was beaten again. He fainted again and again until his flesh was stuck together and his consciousness was blurred. Looking at Lin Dongbiao's half-dead appearance, Lin Feng did not have the slightest bit of sympathy for him. He only had himself to blame for everything. This is? Lin Feng curiously looked at the round, milky white stone in his hand. It felt cool to the touch. Tianwu coins. Madame Yuru looked a little tired. Taking care of her son had consumed a lot of her energy. This is the mainstream currency of the Tianwu continent. 1 Tianwu coin is equivalent to 100 gold coins. Lin Feng nodded and weighed the 10 Tianwu coins in his hand. They were indeed much lighter than gold coins. Lin Feng gently put them into his pocket and tied them around his waist. He naturally believed that Madame Yuru would not lie to him because there was no need for her to do so. Goodbye. Lin Feng cupped his hands and said goodbye. He turned around and left. Shuttling through the mountain path, Lin Feng could not help but smile when he felt the weight on his waist. Although the 10 Tianwu coins could only buy the lowest grade conjoined house in Chihua Town, he was satisfied. No matter what, the living conditions in Chihua Town were not something the Lin family village could compare to. One was a town, the other was a remote village. Father can sit in a moving car, enjoy the sunshine, and travel around. Sister will no longer be bound by the clan's rules and can enjoy a free life. And mother and brother. The long-awaited wish in his heart was about to come true. Lin Feng had an indescribable feeling. Thinking about how his mother worked herself to death to raise him, thinking about how his father and brother had to face the strange gazes of others, Lin Feng felt a pang of guilt in his heart. And all of this would become a thing of the past. The fate of our family can be changed from today onwards. Lin Feng's figure sped up and instantly transformed into a gust of wind. With his current strength, he did not even need half an incense stick's worth of time to travel from the top of the mountain to his home. It was merely a snap of a finger. In front of him, the huge craggy rock was still blocking his way. Lin Feng lightly stepped on it with his right foot, and his body actually jumped 5 meters into the air. His right hand pushed forward, and not only did he not stop, he even borrowed the force to move forward. A familiar cave appeared in the distance. At the entrance of the cave, Lin Feng caught a glimpse of 2 familiar figures. Lin Wanqing and Lin Shui'er were eagerly waiting for him. When they saw Lin Feng return, they hurriedly went up to greet him. Looking at his mother and sister's expectant eyes, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile and nod. Yeah. Lin Shui'er jumped up happily. Lin Wanqing was so happy that she cried. At this moment, there was no need to hide his emotions anymore. All of his repressed emotions had vanished into thin air. Feeling the deep joy of his family, Lin Feng was also very happy. A smile hung on the corner of his mouth. All this time, he had been working so hard. What was it for? Was it not for this day? That night, Lin Feng and his family were completely immersed in unprecedented excitement and happiness. The depths of this cave was the home that Lin Feng and his family of 5 had lived in for so many years. Although there were many dissatisfactions and discomforts about this home, such as the lack of sunlight all year round, such as the darkness and dampness, and even the occasional company of many reptiles, there were too many bitterness. But when it was time to leave, Lin Feng and his family were still somewhat reluctant. There were too many memories of them here. It was hard to describe all of them, sweet and sour, bitter and spicy. But one must always look forward. Early the next morning, Lin Feng began to move things. There were big and small bags, most of which were clothes. Although he had already let his mother throw away a lot of things, after all, he had stayed here for too long. There were many things that he could not bear to throw away. Sister Qing, what's going on? Why are you moving things? Shui, what's going on with your family? The few families that lived together all asked Lin Wanqing and Lin Shui'er curiously. My brother is now a martial artist. He is highly valued and has earned a lot of money. We are moving to Fire Prayer Town. Lin Shui'er winked playfully, satisfying her little vanity. Qing, Xiao Rong, if you come to Fire Prayer Town one day, I will bring you to play. Which of these people living in the cave did not look forward to the day when they would be able to make a comeback? Lin Wanqing and her family had made a comeback. It was all because of her son. Not only could they move to the top of the mountain, they could even live in Fire Prayer Town with the money. This was a dream that many people did not even dare to think about coming true. Wow, Sister Qing's son is so powerful. He actually joined the Firmament's Sun Martial Sect. Yes, he is. If my son doesn't cause trouble, I will thank the heavens. Sigh, comparing oneself to others is really infuriating. With jealous and envious gazes, everyone watched Lin Feng and his family walk out of the gloomy and damp cave. Lin Wanqing also said goodbye to these neighbors of many years one by one. There were too many things that they were reluctant to part with, but they also sent their sincere blessings. A phone, come, let me help you. Lin Jie carried a big bag in each hand and smiled bitterly. Beside him stood a delicate and pretty girl. Thank you, Jie. Lin Feng patted Lin Jie's shoulder and looked to the right. He smiled and said, this must be Xiaolu. Lin Feng had heard Lin Jie mention her before, so he naturally had an impression of her. Brother Lin Feng. Xiaolu responded obediently, and there was deep envy in her eyes. After all, who didn't want to fly to the branch and become a phoenix? Looking at Xiaolu, Lin Feng sighed. Perhaps when he attended the coming-of-age ceremony that day, this delicate and pretty girl in front of him was already his wife. But now, a difference of one thought made a world of difference. Lin Feng did not regret because he had chosen the right path. If he had not become a preparatory martial artist, how could he have today's glory? When is the wedding? Asked Lin Feng. August 27th, a good day. Lin Jie looked at Xiaolu and smiled gently. I will definitely be there. Lin Feng smiled and said. Lin Jie was someone who had grown up with her in open crotch pants. You brat. Lin Jie hit Lin Feng's chest excitedly. I knew that you, Lin Feng, would definitely make a comeback. The coming-of-age ceremony is nothing. That guy, Adler, is not even worthy of carrying my brother's shoes. Women? After becoming a martial artist, what's there to be afraid of? CK, I have never been to Fire Prayer Town in my life. Looking at Lin Jie's wet eyes, Lin Feng felt his heart ache. In the Lin family village, he only had Lin Jie as a good friend, a good brother. There will be such a day. Lin Feng hugged Lin Jie's shoulders tightly. Let's go. Soon, under the gaze of the crowd, Lin Feng and his family left their home. They left the mountainside, left the small village in the corner, and entered Fire Prayer Town. Wow, it's so big. Is this Fire Prayer Town? Lin Shui'er covered her mouth in surprise and looked around. Lin Feng smiled gently and looked forward. He looked at the crowd coming and going at the town gate and at the heavenly martial artists who were maintaining order. Although it had only been a few days, the feeling was completely different. At that time, The heavenly martial artists who were dressed in uniforms had a high and mighty aura that made him somewhat afraid. But now, Lin Feng shook his head, and his expression was calm and indifferent. Now, in his eyes, these heavenly martial artists were no different from ordinary people. The increase in strength had quietly changed many things that could not be seen by the naked eye. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt a slight movement at his waist, and his eyes lit up. Stealing money? Lin Feng's heart trembled, and he moved his body to the left. His right hand stretched out like lightning and instantly grabbed a wrist. Gotcha! A young man dressed in brocade robes fell to the ground in pain. Large beads of sweat continuously seeped out from his forehead. Ha ha! Ha ha! Ha ha ha! His wrist was broken. Everyone looked over, and Lin Wanqing's face turned pale. She did not expect such a thing to happen when she had just arrived at Fire Prayer Town. What happened? An angry shout came from afar. Lin Feng looked over and saw a strong soldier with a heavy expression walking over. He was tall and sturdy, like a bull. Second Lieutenant Ma, save me. He stole my money. The man in brocade clothes cried out in pain. Instantly, discussions broke out in the surroundings. At first glance, Lin Feng was dressed in coarse hemp clothes, while the man in brocade clothes was dressed in luxurious clothes. Oh! Second Lieutenant Ma's eyes narrowed. Venomous slander. Lin Feng said in a low voice. He wanted to steal my money, and I caught him on the spot. He stole your money? Second Lieutenant Ma sneered and said with a snort, his Liu family has plenty of money. Why would they steal from a country bumpkin like you? I think you're the one who's greedy for money. Come with me. Lin Feng frowned and looked over. He saw that the man in brocade clothes and Second Lieutenant Ma seemed to be communicating with each other through their eyes, and he instantly understood. Not only did the two of them know each other, but they were also working together to trick him. It was clearly this bad guy who stole my brother's money. How can you blame him like this? Lin Shuier pointed at the man in brocade clothes and said angrily, Shut up. The Heavenly Martial Army doesn't need you to teach us how to do things. Second Lieutenant Ma glared at her with a ferocious expression. He raised his hand to slap Lin Shuier. You dare! A thunderous roar rang out. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes were cold and sharp. He quickly stepped forward, and his right fist flew out like a meteor. He launched it after Second Lieutenant Ma, but it arrived first. Crack! With a crisp sound, Second Lieutenant Ma screamed in pain as the bones in his arm were shattered. At that moment, Lin Feng kicked out with his right leg. Bang! It hit the man's lower abdomen. Second Lieutenant Ma, who was as strong as a bull, flew 10 meters away and landed heavily on the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Complete silence. Everyone was shocked, including the man in brocade clothes. His body trembled nonstop as if he had seen a demon. At that moment, a loud whistle rang out in the distance, accompanied by hurried footsteps. Lin Feng's gaze turned cold. He hugged Shuier with his right hand and looked over. In an instant, countless figures rushed over and quickly surrounded the two of them. His mother, Lin Wanqing, was so scared that her face turned pale. She didn't know what to do. Everyone looked at Lin Feng with sympathy and pity. They felt sorry for him. In Chihua Town, he dared to fight with the Heavenly Martial Army and even injured them. Wasn't he courting death? Looking for recommendation votes, brothers, thank you. Chapter 25. Even though he was surrounded, Lin Feng remained calm. Last time, he had already experienced the greed of these Heavenly Martial Army soldiers. Who would have thought that they would be even more greedy this time? At this moment, the Heavenly Martial Army soldiers in front of him parted to the sides, creating a path for him. Lin Feng looked over and saw 5 soldiers approaching with cold expressions and a stern aura. The leader was tall and skinny, and the 2 gold-rimmed bronze stars on his shoulders were dazzling. First Lieutenant, Lin Feng thought to himself, Captain Luo. They shouted in unison, and all the Heavenly Martial Army soldiers bowed, their heads 30 degrees. The hierarchy of the heavenly martial army was very clear. Tap, tap. Captain Luo walked towards Lin Feng with steady and powerful steps. He looked straight into Lin Feng's eyes, but all he saw was a deep darkness. His heart trembled. At this moment, one of the soldiers behind him shouted, "How dare you? Why aren't you kneeling when you see First Lieutenant Luo?" The spectators felt their hearts tremble, and they looked at Lin Feng with pity. In Chihua Town, the heavenly martial army was very powerful. Under everyone's gaze, Lin Feng's left hand reached into his bosom, and he slowly pulled out an ancient token that emitted a silver light. Captain Luo glanced at it, and in an instant, his expression changed. Thud! Captain Luo fell to one knee, and cold sweat poured down his back. "Luo, greets my lord." Complete silence. Everyone was stunned, and their eyes were wide open. Even Lin Shui-er, who was in Lin Feng's arms, had her mouth slightly agape, not knowing what had happened. At this moment, the four soldiers behind Luo also saw the two words Xiaoyang on the token. They were so scared that their legs trembled, and they hurriedly knelt to the ground. The soldier who had scolded Lin Feng earlier was especially scared out of his wits, and his forehead was covered in sweat. "Mommy, we're dead for sure now." Even the leader had knelt, so how could the surrounding soldiers still dare to stand? Luo Yi's my lord shocked them even more. To be called my lord, at the very least, they were all at the same level as the three big shots of Fire Prayer Town. Lin Wanqing was already in a daze. She looked at her son as if she had never seen him before. Her heart was unable to calm down. "Get up and talk, Captain Roger," Lin Feng said softly. "Yes, my lord." Luo replied in fear. Looking at the first lieutenant in front of him, Lin Feng sighed in his heart. Not long ago, he had to look up to him, but now he was respectful to him. Because of this token, Lin Feng's right hand clenched even tighter. Time and time again, he deeply understood how important strength was in the Sky Martial Continent. Without strength, not to mention protecting his family, it would be difficult for him to even protect himself. It's actually very simple. "He stole my money, and I caught him on the spot." Lin Feng pointed at the pale man in embroidered clothes. His eyes suddenly glanced to the distance, and that second Lieutenant Ma wanted to catch me indiscriminately, so Luo broke out in cold sweat and nodded. Yes, my lord. I will immediately take care of it and give you an explanation." Finished speaking, he turned around and angrily shouted to the four soldiers behind him, "Why aren't you doing anything? Immediately throw these two into the military prison. Wait for me to personally interrogate them when I return." "Yes, Captain Roger." The four soldiers received the order and immediately took action, not daring to delay. Seeing the man in embroidered clothes and second lieutenant Ma being dragged away like dead dogs, the onlookers were immediately overjoyed and praised them. Obviously, the two of them had committed crimes not just once or twice. They had accumulated a deep grudge. "Mother, let's go." Lin Feng nodded to his mother. "Brother, you're so powerful." Lin Shui-er's eyes shone brightly as she gave a thumbs up. Lin Feng smiled and rubbed her little head. Lin Feng understood that the truly powerful one was not himself, but that silver command medallion. "Why are all of you still standing there like idiots?" Luo angrily rebuked. As soon as he finished speaking, the heavenly martial army soldiers suddenly understood. They all rushed forward and hurriedly helped Lin Feng's family carry this and that. Every soldier's face was filled with smiles and was incomparably amiable. In an instant, Lin Wanqing and Lin Yun were somewhat unable to accept it. "My lord, this way." Luo followed him like a follower with a face full of smiles. "Captain Roger, there's no need to be so polite." Lin Feng smiled. The sudden change was too big, and he was a bit unaccustomed to it. It's my duty," Luo hurriedly said. "My lord, where are you going? Is there anything I can help you with?" Lin Feng was just about to refuse when he suddenly had a thought. He was unfamiliar with this place, and Luo had a lot of support here. It was obvious that he was a local snake. "I want to buy a house here. I wonder if Captain Roger has any connections?" Lin Feng asked casually. Yes, yes, of course. Luo, he hurriedly said. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. He had a request, but Luo, he looked even happier than he did. Lin Feng, however, didn't know that Luo, he had been feeling uneasy since just now. If Lin Feng made a big deal out of this matter and investigated it, then he would be in trouble. Furthermore, even if this matter didn't happen, Luo, he would burn incense to be able to curry favor with a benefactor like Lin Feng. My lord, please get on the carriage. Just as they left the town gate, Lin Feng saw a moving carriage with the heavenly martial army's insignia. It was unique and luxurious. He turned around and carefully helped his parents and siblings into the carriage. Lin Feng had just sat in the carriage. The large and small bags were placed on the carriage, but the carriage still looked extremely spacious. With a light shout from Luo Yi, the moving carriage immediately sped off. Lin Wanqing and Lin Shui felt a sense of novelty and surprise as they felt the gentle sound of the wind and watched the buildings on both sides move past them. It was indeed no different from the first time Lin Feng had sat in the carriage. My lord, what kind of luxurious residence do you want to buy? Luo, he smiled embarrassedly. Chihua Town is small and doesn't have a residence. The largest and most luxurious residence is in the center of the town. It has 3 floors and a garden. Lin Feng shook his head. Although he also hoped to live in a luxurious residence, it wasn't realistic. His entire fortune only amounted to 10 days of martial coins. Not to mention a luxurious residence, he couldn't even afford a detached house. It doesn't need to be that good. Just recommend a contiguous building to me. Lin Feng nodded. As long as it's convenient to enter and exit, the air is fresh, there's sunlight, and it's safe and stable. These 3 requirements weren't too high. However, to Lin Feng, these were his wishes since he was young. He wanted his father to be able to walk around more often and breathe in the fresh air. He wanted his family to no longer have to stay in a place where the sun didn't shine all year round. Their skin was sickly white. Most importantly, he didn't have to be on tenterhooks like before. Luo Yi smiled. My lord, don't joke around. With your status, how can you squeeze into a building with those commoners? Lin Feng smiled. I'm just a commoner. Luo Yi's expression turned serious. She thought to herself, this lord looks unfamiliar and doesn't seem to be from a wealthy family. However, he has the silver token of Cloud Sun City at such a young age. His background isn't simple. I'm afraid he's a new disciple of some big shot. He'll definitely be someone extraordinary in the future. I wonder if my lord is interested in a military residence? Luo Yi asked. Oh, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He had heard Lin Ting mention that the military residence was where the family members of the Tianwu army lived. Although it wasn't as bustling as the town center, it was quiet and peaceful. The environment was comfortable and suitable for the elderly to enjoy their old age. Most importantly, the Tianwu military district was very safe. In Chihua Town, the Tianwu army was the most powerful force. Even the Chihua Martial Hall couldn't compare to them. But the military residence seems to be a standalone building. It costs at least 10,000 gold coins, which is 100 days of martial coins. Are there connected buildings? Lin Feng couldn't help but wonder. As if she saw Lin Feng's doubts, Luo Yi smiled and said, My lord has the silver token of Cloud Sun City. You have a high status and can enjoy a 10% discount. An ordinary standalone building can be bought for 10 days of martial coins. Really? Lin Feng was overjoyed. If he could buy a standalone building in the military district for 10 days of martial coins, it would be an unexpected surprise. Luo Yi smiled and nodded. My lord, please don't worry. When we reach the military residence, I'll bring you around. Although the residence is small, it has everything you need, including shops, markets, libraries, etc. You can complete all the procedures in about 2 hours and move in immediately. Then I'll have to trouble Captain Luo. Lin Feng said happily. After saying that, Lin Feng took out some Tianwu coins from his waist, but was stopped by Captain Luo. Luo Yi smiled and said, My lord, You're too polite. A mere 10 days of martial coins is not worth mentioning. Just take it as a small gift from Luo E. Please don't refuse. Seeing Luo E being so generous, Lin Feng smiled and didn't refuse. It was his first time in Chihua Town, and it was always good to have some money on hand. This Captain Luo is indeed a smart person. Lin Feng nodded. Adding flowers to embroidery and sending charcoal in snowy weather were two completely different concepts. Although Luo Yi's intentions were obvious, he couldn't help but accept his kindness. Luo. Lin Feng remembered this name. From today onwards, wear the military uniform and you will be a member of the Tianwu army. As long as you pass the martial combat assessment, you will officially wear the Bronze Star and become a second lieutenant. In a military district, a Tianwu soldier was routinely lecturing on behalf of the new recruits. Xing Yang, Wei Ning, familiar faces appeared one after another. The 10 new recruits stood up straight, their eyes filled with pride. Suddenly, the sound of moving carriages could be heard from afar. The Tianwu soldier looked over and immediately shouted, "Everyone, turn around and welcome Captain Luo." "Yes, instructor." The new recruits hurriedly stood up straight, their expressions a little nervous. They had just found out that there were only 3 captains in a military district, and their positions were extremely high. With respectful expressions, Tsang Yang, Wei Ning, and the other new recruits all raised their heads and looked at the moving carriages of the military district. As they got closer and closer, in an instant, they were all dumbfounded. Lin Feng? Why was he together with Captain Luo? Furthermore, from the way the two of them were talking, Captain Luo was smiling flatteringly as if he was trying to curry favor with him. Were their eyes playing tricks on them? Author's note. I wish everyone a happy new year. P.S. I hope everyone can support Xiao Xiao and vote for her. Thank you. Chapter 26. This house will be yours from now on. It's fully furnished and ready to move in at any time, Luo Yi said with a smile. She was in a good mood. Although she had spent quite a bit of Tianwu coins, it was well spent, and she even learned Lin Fan's name when she registered the house owner. Looking at the 2-story house in front of him, Lin Feng felt a myriad of emotions. Originally, he had only planned to buy a conjoined house, but now, he could actually live in an independent house. This was an independent house. It had a courtyard, a garden, and an independent underground training room. It was one of the best houses in the house. To his family, this was already a rather perfect home. Lin Wanqing and Lin Shui covered their mouths in shock, not daring to believe their eyes as they stared at the green and white walls in front of them, looking at each other. Let's go in, father, mother. Lin Feng smiled and slowly pushed open the door. This would be their home from now on. Rustle, rustle, rustle. In the underground training room, Lin Feng sat cross-legged. His chest rose and fell slightly. As he breathed in and out, origin energy gathered from all directions and strengthened every cell in his body. Suddenly, Lin Feng opened his eyes. He let out a long sigh and stood up. Compared to the red mist produced by the purple flame, the absorption of origin energy is so much weaker. It's almost negligible. He looked around. The entire training room was completely enclosed. It was quiet and secluded. Although the house was big, Lin Feng was not a person who cared about quality and details. To him, even a row of luxurious houses could not compare to this underground training room. Pong! He punched out. The sound of air breaking rang out. Pong! He punched out again. This time, it was strong and powerful. However, Lin Feng was not satisfied. He fell into deep thought. Why can't my fist contain flames? That day I could have. Lin Feng recalled the battle with Qiuban. In the end, he had almost completely lost consciousness. However, that fist was mixed with flames. It was like a python opening its mouth and swallowing Qiuban alive. However, after that, he was unable to test out that astonishing punch again. Loosening his fist, Lin Feng opened his palm with a hua sound. In an instant, the flames lit up and a cluster of scarlet flames took shape. After 3 days of training, Lin Feng's control over the flames had become much more proficient. However, his application of the flames was still at the most elementary level. He could only throw the flames out like throwing stones. That couldn't even be considered an attack. The speed was too slow. If I could concentrate the flames in my fists, then the destructive power of each punch would be absolutely astonishing. Lin Feng shook his head. Although the idea was good, it was not simple to implement. After 3 days of cultivation, he didn't have the slightest clue. He didn't know which direction to go and how to work hard. If only Ziao was here. That beautiful fairy-like figure appeared in his mind, and Lin Feng couldn't help being absent-minded. He didn't know why, but his intuition told him that Ziao would definitely be able to help him. However, he could only rely on himself now. There are still 6 days until the martial practitioner combat assessment. As long as I can get the best results. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He naturally remembered Ziyao's promise, special reward. Something that Ziyao called special would definitely not be ordinary. In these 6 days, if I can master the combination of flames and fists, my combat ability will definitely increase greatly. Lin Feng clenched his fists. This reward, I must get it. And? That's right. Isn't there a library in the residence? Let's go take a look. With a thought, Lin Feng left in a split second. The library in the residence is divided into 3 floors. Only martial practitioners can enter the 3rd floor. Lin Feng muttered to himself. After arriving at the residence, Luo Yi had brought him and his family to walk around. Lin Feng had a deep impression of the library. After all, what he lacked the most now was knowledge, especially when it came to martial practitioners. Other than knowing that martial practitioners were divided into 3 levels, Martial Warrior, Martial Grandmaster, and Emperor Wu, he knew almost nothing else. There were more people on the 1st and 2nd floors. The books here were complicated and varied, ranging from astronomy and geography to cooking. According to what Lin Feng knew, his younger brother, Lin Yun, had asked to accompany him here a long time ago. Soon, Lin Feng ran to the 3rd floor. Unexpectedly, there wasn't even a shadow of a person here. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. He didn't think too much about it. Looking around, there were at least 100 bookshelves on the entire floor. There were more than 10,000 books. The collection was quite large. Continent geography, exploring elemental energy. With a glance, Lin Feng picked up martial practitioners and magical beasts and casually flipped through it. It introduced some of the most basic things about martial practitioners and magical beasts, including the classification of levels, commonalities, and so on. Although it was the most basic of the basics, Lin Feng still benefited greatly from it. So magical beasts are the same as martial practitioners. They are also divided into 9 levels: soldier level, beginner, intermediate, advanced, commander level, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and commander level, beginner, intermediate, advanced. So martial practitioners actually have existences that surpass Emperor Wu's level. So we humans have always been oppressed by magical beasts and have nowhere to go. Absorbing the barren knowledge like a sponge, Lin Feng nodded from time to time, revealing a look of realization. After a long time, he put the book Martial Practitioners and Magical Beasts back on the bookshelf. He never would have thought that humans had always been at a disadvantage when fighting against magical beasts. If not for the protection of the gigantic energy shield, humans would have long gone extinct. No wonder magical beasts wreak havoc all year round. No wonder every inch of land in the Tianwu continent is worth gold, and every mountain is filled with people. With a long sigh, Lin Feng suddenly understood many things that he did not understand in the past. Shaking his head, he slowly walked forward. Lin Feng thought about it in 100 ways. Indeed, he had completely erased his previous misconceptions, and his mood became much heavier. Unknowingly, he had already walked to the end. With an indifferent smile, Lin Feng was just about to turn when his gaze suddenly caught a glimpse of a lonely bookshelf not far away. The other bookshelves were all densely packed with books, but this bookshelf was completely empty. There were less than 10 books, and not only were they thin, they were also covered in a lot of dust, as if no one had looked at them for a long time. Wood Spirit Master? Lin Feng was stunned. He suddenly remembered what Qin Lai had told him before. Zi Yao was a Wood Spirit Master. Just as Lin Feng was about to reach out and take down the detailed explanation of Wood Spirit Masters, he caught a glimpse of another book that was placed at the side. Lin Feng's heart suddenly jumped. Introduction to Fire Spirit Masters. The book was very old, but the blazing flame on the cover seemed to have a life of its own. It made his heart beat faster, and he felt an indescribable excitement and nervousness. Gently brushing away the dust on the cover, Lin Feng flipped to the first page with a slightly nervous heart. Fire Spiritual Master, one of the 5 elemental spiritual masters. It's an extremely rare existence among warriors and is known for its ability to control fire. No matter which elemental spiritual master it is, it's not a result of cultivation. Every celestial spiritual master is a talented person who awakens by themselves. They have one thing in common, and that is before they awaken, they are no different from ordinary warriors. But once they awaken, they become terrifying. After a fire spiritual master awakens, a wisp of fire will appear in their dantian. The fire will spread outward and form a beautiful fire lotus. Reading up to this point, Lin Feng's mind suddenly exploded with a bang. All of his guesses and doubts disappeared at this moment. He finally knew the origin of his strange illness, and finally understood what the purple fire in his dantian was. He was enlightened. I'm actually a fire spiritual master. Lin Feng felt that it was inconceivable. His heart was filled with shock, but it was also difficult to conceal his ecstasy and excitement. Celestial spiritual master. That's the synonym of an expert. According to the book, there wasn't a single celestial spiritual master who was weak. Even if they just ate and drank and didn't cultivate, breaking through to become a martial grandmaster was something that happened in the blink of an eye. In fact, most of the celestial spiritual masters were experts at the level of Emperor Wu. Reading down word by word, Lin Feng didn't dare to miss a single sentence. Fire spiritual masters are the same as other celestial spiritual masters. Their strength increases very quickly. It's just that when they are young, they are unable to withstand the intensity of the fire. Therefore, their fire seed is in a dormant state. But when their body becomes stronger and reaches a certain limit, the fire seed will truly awaken and turn into a fire seed. The stronger the body, the greater the intensity of the fire seed that can be withstood and displayed. Warriors are divided into martial warriors, primary, intermediate, advanced, martial grandmasters, primary, intermediate, advanced, and Emperor Wu, primary, intermediate, advanced. There are a total of 9 levels. The intensity of the fire seed is usually 1 level higher than the body, which is 3 levels. If the body is at the level of a senior martial warrior, then the intensity of the fire seed is at the level of a senior martial grandmaster. If the body is at the level of an intermediate martial grandmaster, then the intensity of the fire seed is at the level of an intermediate Emperor Wu. A fire spiritual master's strength has a period of rapid growth. The fire seed's energy will decrease layer by layer, forming the amount of fire seed that the body can absorb. The stronger the body, the more fire seed it can absorb, and the faster the fire seed will be consumed, until one day, when the fire seed's energy is completely exhausted, then the speed of a fire spiritual master's strength will return to normal. When Lin Feng saw this, he couldn't help but be startled. So, the increase of a fire spiritual master's strength is in fact the absorption of fire seed. The stronger the body, the more fire seed it can absorb, and the faster it can absorb. The potential of a fire spiritual master can be determined by the color of the fire seed. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple. Red has the worst potential. Normally, when a fire spiritual master reaches the level of a junior martial grandmaster, its energy will be exhausted and extinguished. Purple has the highest potential. Even the worst purple fire seed can allow a fire spiritual master to reach the level of Emperor Wu. Lin Feng suppressed the excitement in his heart and finished reading this paragraph. He even read the last sentence 3 times. His breathing was obviously hurried. Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu's level. In other words, his future strength is the weakest. They are all at the level of Emperor Wu. While he was happy, Lin Feng sighed his heart. Because according to the book, the death rate of a fire seed's awakening is very high, especially the strongest purple fire seed. It seems that my luck is not bad. I actually survived the awakening. Lin Feng thought that he was lucky, but he didn't know that Xiao Ban had become his scapegoat. The moment when a fire seed awakens is the most dangerous. Unfortunately, the unlucky Xiao Ban had to bear the brunt of the first fire seed. That's it. Flipping to the last page, Lin Feng was lamenting why there was so little content in this introduction to fire spiritual masters. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. Remember, unless you have no other choice, don't reveal your identity as a fire spiritual master. Otherwise, it will easily lead to a fatal disaster. The bright red words and the fierce writing made Lin Feng feel a chill from the bottom of his heart. Although he didn't understand why it would lead to a fatal disaster, Lin Feng deeply remembered this sentence. Ho, the first mystery is revealed. Lin Feng's strength will rapidly increase. Brothers and sisters, if you like it, please give me a recommendation vote. Chapter 27. I can't use the power of a fire spirit master. Lin Feng frowned, then smiled in relief. My physical fitness has already reached the standard of an intermediate martial warrior. Moreover, I've been practicing with the spear since I was a child, so my actual combat ability shouldn't be weak. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. During the exam, the spear's strength was 1200 Jin, which far exceeded my own strength. If I could completely master that spear, my attack power would be comparable to that of an advanced martial warrior. That's right, there's also that wonderful footwork. In a split second, Ziyao's beautiful figure appeared in Lin Feng's mind. That wonderful footwork seemed to be replayed in slow motion. One step, another step. Every step seemed to contain the essence of truth. The position of the foot, the timing of the step, the strength, they all formed a line, forming a circular cycle. Unknowingly, Lin Feng once again fell into that strange feeling. 2 hours passed. For hours passed, time continued to pass. The night fell, and the morning sun rose. When the sun set the next day, Lin Feng woke up. The wonderful footwork in his mind seemed to be connected into lines one after another, forming countless whole bodies. However, it was only a rough outline, as if he was copying a painting. He had only drawn the outermost lines. Not to mention the essence of the concept, he couldn't even copy the content inside. It's too profound. Lin Feng sighed helplessly. Rumble, rumble. Rubbing his stomach, Lin Feng felt a little weak. He raised his head and looked at the sky outside. He couldn't help but smile. Didn't I eat a lot for lunch? How come I'm hungry so soon? Shaking his head, Lin Feng left the library and went home. Immersed in the comprehension of his body, Lin Feng didn't know that time had passed. An entire day and night passed. The door was pushed open. What entered Lin Feng's eyes was no longer the small wooden hut that he could see through. Instead, it was a spacious hall that was luxurious and imposing. Lin Feng sniffed and could already smell the fragrance of meat. Mother, I'm back. Lin Feng smiled as he walked into the hall. Seeing everyone looking at him in surprise, Lin Feng couldn't help but scratch his head. What? Is there something dirty on my face? Lin Wanqing looked distressed. Feng hurry up and eat. Look at how tired you are. Lin Shuai said softly. Brother, if you don't eat, your body will be exhausted. Looking at the freshly placed bowls and chopsticks on the table and the steaming hot dishes, Lin Feng muttered, Isn't the meal not ready yet? Lin Yin smiled. Brother, today is the 5th day of the Lunar New Year. The 5th day of the Lunar New Year. Lin Feng was stunned for a moment. Then his expression changed. He had actually stayed in the library for a day and a night. It can't be. Laugh. Amidst the laughter of his family, Lin Feng wolfed down his dinner. He was indeed so hungry that his chest was sticking to his back. So be it. Lin Feng didn't mind. His family was happy, so what if he was laughed at? Anyway, he didn't mind having one more embarrassing incident. As long as his family was complete, harmonious, and warm, he would be satisfied. Wasn't this what he had been striving for? After dinner, Lin Feng went to the military dojo. The military dojo was the same as the one in the Lin family village. It had 3 floors, but to enter the first floor, one must have the strength of a beginner martial warrior. To enter the second floor, one must have the strength of an intermediate martial warrior. As for the third floor, only some of the big shots in the military could enter. I need to find a suitable gun, Lin Feng secretly said. Weapons were very important to a warrior, and it was the same for Lin Feng. Suddenly, whoosh, a moving car sped past. It was black and white, and the angular shape of the car was very imposing. Screech, a low sound rang out. The moving car stopped in front of the dojo. Lin Feng raised his head and saw the car door open. A 2-meter-tall man stepped out of the car. He was wearing a neat uniform, and his short golden hair was full of vigor. He casually swept his gaze past the Tianwu soldiers and paused on Lin Feng for a moment before entering the dojo. Lieutenant Colonel. Lin Feng was secretly shocked. He glanced at the 2 silver stars on the man's shoulder. The man's gaze just now made him feel slightly pressured. This was the gaze of someone who had gone through many life and death battles and had a steel-like will. As expected of the military, I can actually see an intermediate martial grandmaster. Lin Feng sighed slightly. He didn't care too much and also entered the dojo. In the past, Yin Feng's gaze could make him tremble. But now, facing an intermediate martial grandmaster, he only felt slightly pressured. The dojo was extremely large. It was so wide that one couldn't see the end of it. Walking inside, there were close to 100 martial artists. However, to Lin Feng, these martial artists were no different from ordinary people. As he walked forward, he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. Lin Feng's face immediately revealed a smile. Sun Yang. Lin Feng happily walked over. Oh, Lin Feng. Sun Yang was overjoyed. It really is you. I didn't see wrong yesterday. Wei Ning and the others said it was impossible, haha. Lin Feng was stunned for a moment before suddenly realizing that Sun Yang must have seen him when Luo Yi brought him around the military district yesterday. Congratulations, Sun Yang. Lin Feng smiled. He knew that Sun Yang's wish was to enter the Tianwu army. Now that he saw him here, his wish would definitely be fulfilled. It's okay. Sun Yang rubbed his head and said enviously, you're still the best. You actually managed to enter the Firmament martial sect. That's your future. Right. Why did you come to the military district? I bought a house and just moved into it yesterday, Lin Feng said casually. Sun Yang was stunned. His expression was a bit silly. Bought a house. Moved in? The cheapest house in the military district, even that started at 100 days of martial coins. A few days ago, Lin Feng couldn't even take out 2 gold coins. He was so poor that he was a complete mess. Now, he could actually buy a house worth more than 10,000 gold coins? Is this a joke? Come over when you have time. My house is number 33. Lin Feng smiled. I'm going up first. Let's do our best for the combat test on the 10th day. After saying this, Lin Feng left like a gust of wind, leaving behind a dumbfounded Sun Yang with his eyes wide open. Did he hear wrong? Go up? Only mid-ranked martial artists had the right to enter the second floor. The large second floor of the training hall was empty. Lin Feng was stunned. Where did he go? Although he was puzzled, Lin Feng didn't care. He looked around and saw more than a dozen energy machines. There were also separate training rooms on the side. The main training hall was extremely spacious. As expected of the military district's martial arts school, Lin Feng clicked his tongue in admiration. His gaze instantly fell on the words armory, written not far away. Walking in, Lin Feng opened the door of the weapons room and immediately gasped. There were hundreds of long spears in front of Lin Feng's eyes. They were like rows of soldiers. There were red-tasseled spears, curved spears, 3-pointed double-edged spears. There were a total of 18 types of long spears. Lin Feng focused his gaze on the 6 weapon racks with 30 leaping dragon spears. 240 gene, 280 gene, 320 gene. The weight of each weapon was clearly marked on each weapon rack. Lin Feng casually pulled out a leaping dragon spear that weighed 250 kilograms. He lowered his hands slightly and thrust the spear forward with a chi sound. Lin Feng's face instantly lit up. Indeed, the spears here are suitable for intermediate warriors. Gently putting the spear back, Lin Feng stepped in front of another weapon rack. Clang! Lin Feng took out the leaping dragon spear, which weighed 280 kilograms. Lin Feng's hand trembled as if they had a telepathic connection. Amidst the steadiness, there was an overbearing sharpness. Chi! The spear thrust forward. The speed was faster and the sound of the wind was louder. Sure enough, a weapon that weighs 1/10 of its strength is the most suitable. Grasping the soaring dragon's spear tightly, Lin Feng felt a strong sense of excitement. In a split second, the soaring dragon's spear danced like the wind, displaying a series of afterimages. It was as if the dragon on the soaring dragon spear was really leaping and flying, extremely agile. Let's go and see how powerful I can be with the leaping dragon spear. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. On the third floor of the military dojo, Li Yun and a blonde man were walking side by side as they chatted happily. Yo, Major Li Meng, you have become a lieutenant colonel in just a year. The one who spoke was one of the 3 heads of Fire Prayer Town, Captain Li Yun. Brother, don't tease me. Li Meng laughed. His 2-meter-tall body was half a head taller than Li Yun. His expression turned serious as he looked into the distance. Is everyone here? All the lieutenants and captains are here. How many people do you need? Li Yun pointed to the front. Li Meng looked over and saw about 20 martial artists standing upright. Each of them had 2 bronze stars on their shoulders. 2 captains and 10 lieutenants should be enough. My mission is to protect Fire Prayer Town. As for hunting the bears, there will be hunters. Okay, no problem. Li Yun patted his chest and laughed. I didn't expect that the little guy who used to follow behind me would become my boss. Li Meng smiled embarrassedly and was about to say something. Dee. A clear and bright sound came from downstairs, causing the two to look at each other in surprise. This is the strength testing machine downstairs. It makes a sound that exceeds 4,800 gene. Li Yun said in surprise. All the high-ranked and mid-ranked martial artists are here. Who else can exceed the strength of a high-ranked martial artist with a single punch? Why don't we go take a look? Li Meng laughed. Whoosh, whoosh. Li Yun and Li Meng instantly turned into 2 afterimages. In the blink of an eye, they went from the 3rd floor to the entrance of the 2nd floor. 5,016 gene? Li Meng's eyes were sharp. Although he was far away, he could still clearly see the number on the 5th strength testing machine. He glanced over and was surprised when he saw Lin Feng, so young. Li Yun's eyes widened as he said in disbelief, Lin Feng, I'm begging for a recommendation vote. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 28. At this moment, Lin Feng was surprised to see the 2 people at the door. The golden-haired man was the lieutenant colonel he had seen before. As for Captain Li Yun, his memory was still fresh. He was one of the 3 big shots of Fire Prayer Town. Captain Li, Lin Feng saluted. Come here. Li Yun smiled and shouted, Lin Feng, let me introduce you to Lieutenant Colonel Li Meng. He is a big shot. There are 20 cities and towns in the vicinity of Firmament City, including Fire Prayer Town. 5 of them are under his jurisdiction. Lin Feng did not dare to be negligent. He saluted and said, Lieutenant Colonel Li. He naturally understood what Lieutenant Li Yun meant. It was obvious that Li Meng's official was 1 rank higher than his. Brother, let me introduce you to him. He passed the preparatory martial artist assessment a few days ago and was recruited by Firmament Martial Sect. He is only 18 years old. Li Yun's eyes flashed as he emphasized the last sentence. Suddenly, Li Meng's expression changed slightly. Lin Feng, have you succeeded in cultivating elemental energy? Li Meng asked with a smile. Yes, after the preparatory martial artist assessment, I tried to cultivate elemental energy for the first time and was lucky enough to succeed. Lin Feng nodded and said truthfully. Li Meng was shocked, and his eyes lit up. He did not expect to find such a good seedling during this mission. Lin Feng did not know how much he shocked Li Meng. From birth to the first time a martial artist cultivated elemental energy, there was a gap of 10 to 20 years. Their body had never actively absorbed elemental energy. It was because they had been hungry for so many years that the first time they cultivated elemental energy was the most shocking. Some people were gifted and had shown their talents early on. Thus, they had already shocked the world when they were still preparatory martial artists. Some people, on the other hand, would only awaken after their first successful elemental energy cultivation, and their abilities would increase by leaps and bounds. Therefore, a martial artist's true potential was determined by their strength after their first successful elemental energy cultivation. Have you tested your speed and body strength? Li Meng asked. 100 meters and 1. For seconds, body strength 7. 3 titanium. Lin Feng answered without hiding anything. Li Meng and Li Yun's eyes met. Instantly, they could see the intense surprise in each other's eyes. At the end of their first elemental energy training, only 1 in 10 would be able to reach the standard of a beginner martial warrior. Those who could break through the standard of an intermediate martial warrior were the cream of the crop. And to be able to reach the standards of an intermediate warrior in all 3 categories, one was definitely a genius. In the entire Cloud Sun City and the surrounding 20 towns, only a few excellent seedlings would appear every year. But for someone like Lin Feng, who even exceeded the standard of a high-level warrior, he was a genius among geniuses. Good. Li Meng beamed and nodded in satisfaction. Li Yun patted Lin Feng's shoulder and praised. Little guy, I didn't expect your aptitude to be so good. I won't hide it from you. The first time you successfully cultivated elemental energy, your strength exceeded the standard of a mid-level warrior, and your strength reached the standard of a high-level warrior. I can assess. Your talent belongs to a first-grade genius. Looking at the entire Cloud Sun City's 8 million people, it's a rare sight. Lin Feng smiled helplessly. First-grade genius? Others didn't know, but he knew very well that when he cultivated elemental energy for the first time, his strength had just exceeded the standard of a beginner martial warrior. Only after the awakening of his fire seed did his strength increase by a large margin, reaching such a shocking number. Others only increased their strength once, but he increased it twice. However, Li Yun and Li Meng didn't expect this. After all, the greatest increase in strength for a normal martial artist was the first time they cultivated elemental energy. Lin Feng, let me ask you, are you willing to join the Heavenly Martial Army? Li Meng's eyes glowed. Lin Feng was startled. He didn't expect Li Meng to invite him to join the Heavenly Martial Army. Lieutenant Colonel thinks highly of me, but this junior has already joined the Cloud Sun Martial Sect. Lin Feng cupped his hands and thanked him. That's nothing. Li Meng waved his hand, his expression unafraid. You haven't become a true martial artist, so you can't sign a contract with any power. A verbal agreement doesn't count. Furthermore, how can a mere Cloud Sun Martial Sect compare to our Heavenly Martial Army? With your aptitude, if you join the Heavenly Martial Army, you can immediately join the elite army and receive the best treatment and training. Lin Feng nodded in understanding. Yes, if I join like this, then what's the point of the martial warrior combat test? If a normal martial artist joins the Heavenly Martial Army and signs a contract, they will receive a contiguous building and 10 days' worth of starting capital. Li Meng looked at Lin Feng with a faint smile. As for you, as long as you nod your head, you'll receive a military residence worth 100 days of martial coins, as well as 100 days of startup capital. Moreover, you'll receive immediately. Lin Feng held his breath. In all fairness, these conditions were indeed incomparably generous. In other words, regardless of whether he passed the martial warrior combat test or not, he would receive 200 days' worth of martial coins, which was 20,000 gold coins. If it was before, he wouldn't even think about it, but now, my apologies, Lieutenant Colonel. Lin Feng bowed slightly. As a man, if he made a promise, he had to do it. Since he had promised Ziao and Qin Lai, even if he didn't make any material promises, he couldn't go back on his word. Li Meng sighed softly. Since that's the case, I won't force you. However, if you change your mind, you are welcome to join the Heavenly Martial Army at any time. Li Meng shook his head and didn't say anything else. He left with Li Yun with a regretful expression. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long sigh of relief. For a moment, he had been tempted. After all, this was something that could be obtained with a stretch of his hand. As far as he knew, the martial warrior combat test had a disability rate of more than 20%. It was quite dangerous, but I will definitely pass. Gripping the leaping dragon spear in his hand, Lin Feng was full of confidence. He was now. Times had changed. Life in the military residence was peaceful and comfortable. At first, Lin Feng's family wasn't used to it, but they gradually fell in love with this kind of life. Lin Wanqing pushed her husband around every day, strolling around the shops, buying groceries, and cooking. When she was free, she would plant flowers and trees in her own garden with a satisfied smile on her face. Lin Yun's favorite place was the library. He would often drag Lin Shui'er along and spend most of the day there. As for Lin Feng, every day, other than cultivating, it was still cultivating. In the underground cultivation room, Lin Feng's upper body was naked. Sweat flowed down his back, and his bronze muscles were filled with explosive power. His right leg stretched out 2 meters, and like a spring, the spear in his hand turned into a streak of light. Accompanied by a shocking sound, it turned into a streak of light. Gasping for breath, Lin Feng put the leaping dragon spear on the ground, picked up a cup of water, and gulped it down to replenish the water lost in his body. The basics of spear arts says that no matter how complicated the spear art is, no matter how many changes there are, it cannot escape the 18 basic movements of blocking, grabbing, and stabbing. Blocking is defense, grabbing is control, and stabbing is attack. That spear is composed of the 4 basic movements of stabbing, pointing, piercing, and stabbing. No, it seems that there is also the shaking and trembling of grabbing. As he practiced and groped, that spear kept replaying in his mind. Lin Feng pondered and comprehended. Logically speaking, this should be a very fast spear. Why did it turn into countless, slow movements in my mind? Sometimes, Lin Feng would inexplicably think of this question, but he didn't delve into it. For him, this was undoubtedly an opportunity. If there weren't countless slow movements replaying, he wouldn't be able to complete a simple imitation, let alone study it. Spear art was both familiar and unfamiliar to Lin Feng. He was familiar with it because he'd been training with the spear since he was young for 10 years. However, he was unfamiliar with it. Lin Feng only realized that spear art was too broad and profound after he read The Basics of Spear Arts in the library. Even though he had been training with the spear for 10 years, he had only scratched the surface. Letting out a long sigh, Lin Feng picked up the leaping dragon spear once again. His eyes were filled with determination. There were no shortcuts in spear art, only hard work. Time flew by. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. On the morning of the 10th day, sitting cross-legged on the ground, Lin Feng, who looked like he was sleeping, slowly opened his eyes and emitted a sharp glow. After an entire night of elemental energy training, he was in high spirits. His body was in a state of slight excitement. Standing up, Lin Feng stretched his body and suddenly grasped the leaping dragon spear in his right hand. An ice-cold feeling spread to his heart, as if his blood vessels were fusing. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His right foot stepped forward as fast as lightning. The force traveled from his spine to his right arm. The explosive force caused the leaping dragon spear in his hand to shoot out like a dragon emerging from the sea. It emitted a loud and clear cry, and in a split second, flowing light shot out in all directions. Chi! Thunder rumbled. Very good. Withdrawing his spear, Lin Feng's face revealed a satisfied smile. After 5 days of hard work, Not only was he able to completely control his body, but he also had a new understanding of the mysterious warrior's spear. Regardless of whether it was the speed or strength of his spear, they were all greatly improved. In his mind, the result of the strength test 5 days ago appeared. 5,016 gene. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. Currently, the strength of his spear was extremely close to 6,000 gene. Gently brushing the body of the leaping dragon spear, Lin Feng's eyes gradually lit up. He clenched his right hand tightly and left the underground training room. Today was the day of the warrior combat assessment. Author's note: the book review section is quite empty due to the opening of a new book. If you have time, please leave a footprint or tip me 0.00001 cheating coins and fill up the fan column on the right side. Chapter 29. Heaven Sun City was thriving and flourishing like a piece of brocade. Lin Feng sat on the moving carriage, admiring the scenery. He couldn't help but gasp in amazement. In Chihua Town, the independent houses were the best, but in Shaoyang City, they could be seen everywhere. There were even more luxurious mansions. In the central district, there were even villas with small bridges and flowing water, which made Lin Feng's eyes brighten. The difference is too big. Lin Feng sighed. Indeed, there was no comparison. Cloud Sun City and Chihua Town were like Chihua Town and Lin Village. They were not on the same level. I heard that there are close to 10,000 people participating in the combat assessment. Is that true? It's true. The 20 towns around Cloud Sun City have more than 2,000 people. Cloud Sun City has more than 3,000 people. The rest are those who failed the assessment last time. Oh my God, just the Cloud Sun City alone has more preparatory warriors than the 20 towns combined? Listening to the discussions in the carriage, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile indifferently. He had learned a lot about the combat assessment from them. Close to 10,000 people? Lin Feng calculated. Yes, the passing rate of each assessment was 30%. After deducting the number of casualties, there were still 5,000 people who didn't pass. They would have to wait until the next assessment. After all, as long as they didn't die, they could participate in the combat assessment countless times. Soon, the carriage had arrived at the destination. This is Cloud Sun Marshal Gate. Lin Feng jumped off the carriage. His eyes were filled with vigor and vitality. The bright metallic luster reflected a dazzling light. Cloud Sun Marshal Gate covered a large area. The surrounding buildings were like stars surrounding the moon. He couldn't see the bottom of the gate. Thinking that he would be able to practice martial arts here after passing the assessment, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel excited and expectant. Lin Feng, a clear voice sounded in his ears. Lin Feng turned his head and saw Tsing Yang, who was dressed in a military uniform, waving at him. Lin Feng smiled and walked over. "Kid, you're so slow," Tsing Yang said helplessly. "Let's go. I'll take you to get your equipment." "Equipment? Is that what you're wearing?" Lin Feng noticed that Tsing Yang's body was covered in a layer of turtle scale-shaped metal armor. It was transparent and as thin as a cicada's wing. "Yes, the titanium energy suit in this." Tsing Yang raised his left hand, and a small translucent device on his wrist entered Lin Feng's eyes. It was half the size of a palm and looked very delicate. "Locator?" Lin Feng's eyes lit up. For the actual combat assessment this time, he had made sufficient preparations and had flipped through many relevant books. Because the combat assessment was quite dangerous, there would be a locator. Not only could it determine one's position, but it also had a rescue function. The purpose was to reduce the number of casualties as much as possible. It's really strange. While speaking, Lin Feng and Tsing Yang walked side by side into the Firmament Marshal Gate. In front of them was a vast expanse. Although there were thousands of people densely packed, it still felt empty. Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. Compared to the Firmament Martial Arts Hall, it was the difference between the moon and the firefly. Lin Feng looked around. What was different from the preparatory warrior assessment was that almost everyone had brought a weapon with them for the actual combat assessment. Sabers, swords, gloves, and rings were the most common weapons. There were also many sticks, spears, and axes. Some preparatory warriors even carried bows and crossbows, although the power of a fist could be fully exerted. In terms of attack power, it was inferior to weapons. With the same power, a fist could injure a demonic beast, but a sword or spear could pierce a demonic beast. A saber or axe could split a demonic beast in half. Even if it was just a simple fist or ring, it could increase the attack power by 10%. For example, if a warrior had 1,000 gene of pure strength, he could reach 1,200 gene of attack power with a sword, 1,300 gene with a saber, and 1,500 gene with a spear. Of course, this was calculated based on the warrior's familiarity with weapons. Strength and attack power were just like the strength and defense of one's body. They were different. Soon, following the crowd, Lin Feng came to the equipment collection area and lined up. Tianwu Chamber of Commerce, Ma Xiao. Wuyan Martial Hall, Qianningning. After the preparatory warriors reported their names and received their equipment, it was Lin Feng's turn in less than half an hour. Firmament Martial Gate. Lin Feng? The warrior in charge of the equipment distribution was slightly surprised. He raised his head and stared at Lin Feng, then handed over a tracking device about half the size of a palm. Lin Feng reached out and took it. The number 3 was printed on it. He couldn't help but be curious. In an instant, there were exclamations all around. Lin Feng only felt that all eyes were focused on him. What's going on? Lin Feng was dumbfounded. At this time, the warrior in charge of the equipment distribution asked, "Titanium energy suit. How many layers?" "Second layer." Lin Feng nodded. The titanium energy suit could form a tortoise-scaled titanium snail on the surface of the warrior's body. It was a trump card for warriors when fighting against magical beasts. The defensive strength depended on the warrior's physical strength. The first layer was 1, 2 times, and the second layer was 1, 5 times. The titanium energy suit not only increased the warrior's defensive strength, but also gave the warrior an extra layer of defense, greatly reducing the warrior's casualty rate. As expected of 3, he's already an intermediate warrior at such a young age. Amazing. Lin Feng smiled indifferently as he heard the envious voices of the crowd. The higher the layers of the titanium energy suit, the stronger the defensive strength. However, the pressure and demands on the body were also greater. For the second layer, the warrior's physical strength had to reach the standard of an intermediate warrior, which was 4 titanium energy suits. That's amazing. Where's number 3? Sun Yang praised. 3. What's so special about it? Lin Feng asked curiously. As he spoke, Lin Feng placed the locator on his left wrist and turned it on. The locator emitted a flash of light, and 2 rays of light extended from the top and bottom. With a kacha sound, they tightly locked onto each other. The number 3 had already disappeared and was replaced by a circular map module. The odd number represents the strength of the score. 3 is the third place, Xingyang explained. So that's how it is. Lin Feng nodded and his eyes suddenly lit up. Then 1. Is he called Wang Aolong? Lin Feng already knew from Qin Lai that Wang Aolong, who had 3 perfect scores, was his biggest competitor this time. He's quite well informed, but everyone knows. Xing Yang's face flashed with envy. That guy is a monster. His physical fitness was close to that of a primary warrior when he was just a preparatory warrior. He's the most outstanding talent in the Firmament martial sect this year. Lin Feng smiled faintly and did not say anything. Putting on the titanium energy suit, Lin Feng and Sun Yang soon stepped into the transmission array. Destination, Training Forest 101. This is the place for the actual combat assessment. Training Forest 101. Lin Feng looked around with a solemn expression. The temperature here was much lower than in the Firmament City. From time to time, he could hear the low roars of magical beasts. There was a faint smell of wild beasts in the air, which gave people a creepy feeling. Even if there was a sea of people in front of him, he still felt cold and gloomy. The forest was the territory of magical beasts. The training forest is a forest of magical beasts that has been completely explored and controlled by warriors. Lin Feng slowly walked forward and looked at the endless forest. Suddenly, there was a chill behind him. Lin Feng turned his head and saw a familiar face not far away. His eyes were sharp. Lin Nanhu. Sure enough, he's also here. Lin Feng's lips curled coldly. In an instant, Lin Nanhu's face turned pale. He looked away in panic and hid in the crowd. At this moment, Lin Feng, a rough voice came from afar. Even though the surroundings were extremely noisy, Lin Feng's voice clearly reached his ears. Lin Feng turned his head and saw Qin Lai, who was wearing a fiery red martial robe, waving at him. Lin Feng smiled and walked over. He cupped his hands and said, "Vice sect leader. Oh, not bad. You've reached the standard of an intermediate warrior?" Qin Lai laughed heartily. Lin Feng nodded. Compared to the first layer, the second layer of the titanium energy suit had a much clearer and denser pattern. His gaze shifted slightly. Beside Qin Lai, there was a red-haired youth with a cold expression. "Come, let me introduce you. This is Wang Aolong." Qin Lai tilted his head and pointed with a big smile on his face. "Along, this is Lin Feng, the one I mentioned to you before. The Heaven Sun Martial Sect will rely on you two to get first place in this martial practitioner combat assessment." Wang Aolong proudly said, "I alone am enough." Lin Feng smiled faintly and did not mind it too much. Shameless boasting. Lin Feng turned his head and saw a young man who was as tall and muscular as a black bear, holding a gigantic axe in his hand, puffing out his chest proudly. Beside him was a middle-aged man with a smile on his face. He didn't look amazing, but there were 3 silver stars on the shoulder of his military uniform. Lin Feng was shocked. Colonel of the Heavenly Martial Army? Xiong Lei. Wang Aolong's eyes flashed with hostility. "Don't think that you are first just because you got one." The giant axe in Xiong Lei's hand shook as he slammed his chest. The spiral patterns on the titanium suit trembled slightly. Only then did Lin Feng notice that the spiral patterns on Xiong Lei's titanium energy suit were even clearer and denser. They were even better than his own. Third layer? Exceeding the body strength of 8 titanium? He should be 2. Lin Feng thought. A big stupid bear. Wang Aolong coldly mocked. "What did you say, you concave dragon?" Xiong Lei raised his head and stood up straight. He was a head taller than Wang Aolong. Oomph. The two stared at each other. Obviously, they were a pair of enemies. Lin Feng smiled indifferently and didn't participate. He looked at the colonel of the Firmament Martial Army and saw that he and Qin Lai were staring at each other with sparks flying. Lin Feng immediately understood. It seemed that these two were the real enemies. Li Tong, long time no see. Qin Lai stretched out his right hand. "Ah, Vice Sect Leader Qin, how have you been?" Li Tong shook hands with Qin Lai before letting go. His gaze fell on Lin Feng. He smiled and said, "This little brother should be Lin Feng, right?" Lin Feng was startled. He didn't think that this important person would recognize him. He immediately cupped his hands and greeted Colonel Li. "What do you think, Lin Feng?" Li Tong smiled and said amiably, "My son, Li Meng, doesn't have enough authority and can't give you enough benefits." For a first-rate genius like you, the Firmament Martial Army is willing to give you a standalone mansion worth 1,000 Sky Martial Coins, as well as 1,000 Sky Martial Coins as starting capital. Furthermore, you can immediately join the Special Forces. What do you think? Lin Feng was stunned. He didn't expect this Colonel Li to be Lieutenant Colonel Li Meng's father. When he heard the shocking number, Lin Feng was completely stunned. Did he hear wrongly? A standalone mansion? 1,000 Sky Martial Coins. A few days ago, Lieutenant Colonel Li Meng had given him 100 Sky Martial Coins and a standalone mansion, which was already generous enough. Now, the benefits were increased by 10 times. Heavens! Lin Feng was unable to calm down. Although he didn't know the difference between the Special Forces and the Elite Forces, he could clearly distinguish between 1,000 Sky Martial Coins and 100 Sky Martial Coins. 1,000 Sky Martial Coins. That was a total of 100,000 gold coins. As far as he knew, 100,000 gold coins was enough to buy a remote mountain and establish a clan. However, Lin Feng wasn't the only one who was stunned. Wang Aolong and Xiong Lei had already stopped arguing. They stared at Lin Feng in disbelief. First-rate genius? This unremarkable Lin Feng was actually a first-rate genius? What kind of joke was this? Please recommend me. Xiao Zhao's voice is hoarse from shouting. Huh? Chapter 30. Those who reached the standard of an intermediate martial warrior in 3 aspects were second-grade geniuses, such as Wang Alo. Those who reached the standard of an advanced martial warrior in 1 aspect and did not reach the standard of an intermediate martial warrior in the other were second-grade geniuses, such as Xiong Lei. However, Lin Feng reached the standard of an intermediate martial warrior in 2 aspects and even reached the standard of an advanced martial warrior in 1 aspect. That was a first-grade genius. In fact, although second-grade geniuses were rare, there were still a few in the Firmament City each year. However, first-grade geniuses were hard to come by in 10 years. F***CK. Qin Lai was the first to react. His face turned red as he roared. Li Tong, you dare to openly poach people here? Do you think I, Qin Lai, am dead? Li Tong smiled and did not get angry. You can't say that. Vice Sect Leader Qin, each day that the contract is not signed is not counted. It seems that your Firmament Martial Sect has also poached many people from my Celestial Martial Army, right? Qin Lai was at a loss for words. In terms of eloquence, he was not as good as Li Tong, but my apologies, Colonel Li. Lin Feng slightly bowed, but his voice was neither servile nor overbearing. Although the amount was shocking, to him, integrity was far more important than money. Even if the price was 10 times higher, he would still refuse. Lin Feng was not willing to betray his integrity for money. As long as I'm strong enough, I can earn 100 Tian Wu coins, 1,000 Tian Wu coins, or even more with my own hands. I won't go back on my words. Lin Feng thought to himself. With the trump card of being a fire spiritual master, Lin Feng was confident in his future. Any celestial spirit master was at least a martial grandmaster. Since that is the case, I will not force you. Li Tong smiled and did not get angry. He patted Xiong Lei's shoulder and turned to leave. Xiong Lei looked at Lin Feng with a burning gaze full of provocation and hostility, making him feel uncomfortable. Lin Feng shook his head with a bitter smile. Clearly, Xiong Lei had already treated him as a competitor. Furthermore, Lin Feng looked to the side and saw that there was more than one person. As time passed, the number of people in Training Forest 101 quickly reached a saturation point. Lin Feng looked up at the sky. It was time. Everyone. Lin Feng looked up and saw Qin Lai standing at high place, speaking to all the preparatory martial artists. This time's actual combat assessment is the same as the previous ones. It will last for 1 day and 1 night. If you don't return by 9 tomorrow, you will fail. The trial forest is divided into 3 areas: the outer area, the inner area, and the central area. You can look at the tracker on your hand. Lin Feng raised his left hand and saw 2 circular lines, 1 red and 1 yellow, dividing the entire locator into 3 equal parts. The area outside the yellow line was the outer area, which took up 90% of the area. The area between the yellow and red lines was the inner area, which took up nearly 10% of the area. The area inside the red line was the central area, which only took up 1% of the area. The trial forest has a total of 100,000 elementary bee soldiers, 100 intermediate bee soldiers, and 1 advanced bee soldier. The elementary bee soldiers are evenly distributed in the inner and outer areas, with 50,000 in each area. The intermediate bee soldiers are distributed in the inner and central areas, with 50 in each area. The only advanced bee soldier is in the central area. Lin Feng nodded and instantly understood. Simply put, the deeper you go, the stronger the magical beasts are, and the more rewards you will get. The more magical beasts you kill, the more points you will get. Elementary bee soldiers are worth 1 point. Intermediate bee soldiers are worth 100 points, and advanced bee soldiers are worth 1,000 points. The crystal chip on the back of the magical beast neck will be the proof. In addition, as a reward, every time you get a yellow crystal chip of an intermediate bee soldier, My Firmament Sun Martial Sect will reward you with 10 days of martial coins. If you get a red crystal chip of an advanced bee soldier, you will be rewarded with 1,000 days of martial coins. Everyone was in an uproar, and Lin Feng's heart thumped. To him, points were secondary, but martial coins were very important. Only with money could his family live a good life. Remember, you're not allowed to kill each other. All your activities are under surveillance. Violators will be killed without mercy. Lung Rant's voice was sharp and resolute, causing everyone's heart to tremble. Even Lin Feng did not dare to look at Qin Lai directly. That fiery red saber-like body was filled with killing intent, and it was not a joke. Among the 10,000 people, the top 3,000 with points will be qualified to become a martial artist. Those with the same battle record will be ranked according to their distance from the central area. The closer you are to the central area, the higher your rank. Remember, if you're seriously injured or unable to hold on, press the rescue button. Someone will come to save you immediately. But at the same time, it also means that your martial artist combat assessment is over. Finished speaking, Qin Lai waved his hand like a saber being unsheathed and shouted loudly, "Now, let's go." In a split second, all the preparatory martial artists' fighting intent was ignited. Like a turbulent wave, they quickly rushed into the trial forest. "I will not lose to you." The saber at Wang Aolung's waist vibrated, and his expression was proud. Lin Feng smiled slightly and did not reply. His right foot stomped on the ground, and like a gust of wind, he rushed out. The martial artist combat assessment had officially begun. After entering the trial forest, the 10,000 preparatory martial artists quickly scattered, and the flow of people was instantly dispersed. Following behind the crowd, Lin Feng thought to himself, "My strength should be above that of an intermediate martial warrior. My advantage lies in my attack power. When the power of the spear is concentrated, the attack coefficient can reach 1.5 times. With 6,000 gene of strength, I can unleash 9,000 gene of attack power. Even if there's only one high-grade B soldier, I might be able to break through my defense. But the problem is hit." Lin Feng understood that the spear was a medium-grade weapon. In terms of power, it was indeed stronger than sabers and swords, but it was slightly weaker in terms of hit. No matter how strong the spear was, if it could not hit the enemy, what was the use? My weakness is that my combat experience is close to 0, and my speed is my weakest point. If I were to fight with that high-grade B soldier, let alone hit it, I don't even know if I could escape alive. Lin Feng muttered to himself, and directly gave up on the idea of entering the central area. If he only had the speed of an intermediate martial warrior, he would be courting death. My current body strength is 7. 3 titanium. If I wear 2 layers of the titanium energy cloak, my defense will reach 11 titanium. It will not be easy for an ordinary intermediate grade B soldier to hurt me, but Lin Feng's eyes flashed. What the titanium energy cloak protected was only his body. It did not protect his hands, legs, or head. In a martial artist combat assessment, the injuries of the hands and feet were the most common. Demonic beasts are bloodthirsty and crazy. They have a very strong offensive and murderous nature. To be safe, I should first familiarize myself with the battles in the outer area, and then enter the inner area to earn points and Tianwu coins. Anyway, 1 day and 1 night is a very long time. Lin Feng faintly smiled, and his right leg fiercely stomped on the ground. His speed suddenly doubled, and he turned into specks of flowing light. In an instant, the preparatory martial artists behind him were all dumbfounded. After galloping at full speed for about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, he shook off the preparatory martial artists behind him. Soon, Lin Feng encountered his first demonic beast. Although it was very far away, he could still clearly see that it was a demonic beast whose entire body was pitch black, as if it was made of iron. It was at least 2 meters tall, with protruding ears and a straight nose. In its large mouth, 2 huge fangs reflected a chilling light that made one's heart palpitate. Black-skinned wild boar. Lin Feng quickly recognized it. For the actual combat assessment, he specially crammed some common knowledge about demonic beasts that were at the soldier level. The strength of a primary grade beast soldier. Its defense is quite astonishing. Its attacks are all concentrated on its two fangs. Its weakness is its speed is extremely slow. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His body moved up and down a few times, and suddenly he was even closer to the black-skinned wild boar. He could even smell its unpleasant stench. My first prey is you. Lin Feng pulled out the leaping dragon spear from his back. The silver light carried an astonishing speed, and in a split second, it broke through the wind and attacked. At this moment, the black-skinned wild boar had already discovered the human holding a spear in front of it. It let out a deep roar, and immediately after, its thick and solid hooves fiercely stomped on the ground, splashing up dirt and stones. Along with a fishy stench, it rushed towards Lin Feng with a rumbling sound, knocking down the small trees blocking its path. Its momentum was incomparably astonishing. Both of Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He did not dare to be afraid at all. He slowed down, stomped on the ground, and exerted his strength. The leaping dragon spear was like a dragon coming out of the water. The spear art was executed smoothly in one breath. A silver stream of light suddenly appeared and pierced through the black-skinned wild boar's head. Blood splattered everywhere. Lin Feng only felt his right arm suddenly go numb. His body could not help but take a few steps back. The black-skinned wild boar's eyes had already lost their luster, and the stench of fresh blood continuously flowed out. It was thoroughly dead. Huff, huff. Lin Feng took 2 deep breaths. Although he had already prepared himself, when the slaughter really happened in front of him, his heart still trembled. After all, this was his first time killing. Actual combat is indeed completely different. Lin Feng laughed at himself and moved his slightly numb right hand. He knew his own situation. It seemed like the kill was easy, but in that instant his spear art was completely messed up, and he could not display his power at all. If my strength had not already reached the standard of an intermediate warrior, I'm afraid that even if I could kill it, my right arm would have been injured. After reflecting on this battle, Lin Feng clearly understood that this kill did not rely on spear art, but brute force. The black-skinned wild boar's defense was very strong, but that was only when compared to a beginner warrior. Lin Feng's current strength, even if compared to an intermediate warrior, was first class. Fighting with this black-skinned wild boar was simply bullying it. What if it was an intermediate red-spotted wild boar? Thinking of this, Lin Feng suddenly sighed. The result would definitely be too horrible to look at. Closing his eyes and taking a deep breath, Lin Feng nodded vigorously. I have to overcome the trembling heart, overcome the fear. I have to adapt. In the future, I will often fight with magical beasts and walk on the edge of life and death. In crucial battles, if my mental fortitude is not good, it will be easy to lose my life. In fact, Lin Feng's mental fortitude was already quite good. This was his first time killing a magical beast, and there were many who were worse than Lin Feng. To overcome killing and blood, it was not an easy task. Lin Feng walked to the iron wild boar's corpse and lifted the leaping dragon spear. Immediately, he saw a visible white crystal behind its neck. Lin Feng's hand moved. Poochie. The white crystal flew up. Lin Feng caught it with his right hand and put it into the inner pocket of his titanium energy suit. First one, on to the next one. Gradually burning with fighting spirit, Lin Feng's body flashed and disappeared into the forest, leaving behind the cold corpse of the black-skinned wild boar. Its blood dyed the grassy ground red. Please recommend, please collect. I hope that everyone can support Xiao Xiao and the fire refining the starry sky. Thank you. Chapter 31. Half an hour later, half an hour had passed. In the training forest, bloody battles were taking place one after another. Although the strength of a beginner bee soldier was similar to that of a trainee warrior, there was an absolute difference in intelligence. Bee soldiers only had the instincts of wild beasts. In a dense area of thorns, The roar of a magical beast resounded. Two black figures quickly charged at each other. Chi! A crisp sound, blood splashed, and a cold light flashed. Lin Feng landed on the ground with the leaping dragon spear in his hand. His face was still stained with the warm blood of a magical beast. A dog-type magical beast was lying paralyzed in the thorns, its blood staining the thorns. It only has attack power. This saber-toothed hound is much easier to deal with than the black wild boar. Lin Feng wiped the blood off his face with the back of his hand and walked towards the corpse of the saber-toothed hound. However, his expression was still not satisfied. Although I could barely use that spear, its power was not even 30% of what it was during my daily practice. With a flick of the spear, a white crystal flew into the air. Lin Feng grabbed it with his right hand and put it into his bag. The fourth one. After collecting the spoils of war, Lin Feng did not waste any time. Every battle was a good learning opportunity for him. Even if it was a beginner bee soldier that was much weaker than him, he could still learn a lot. It was not something that could be compared to practicing behind closed doors. At the very least, his mentality was now stable. He was no longer trembling like before, and he was no longer afraid. 2 hours later, in the dense forest, two sharp lights collided like meteors, unfolding an intense collision. Chi! Under the refraction of the sunlight, a bright cold light flashed, accompanied by the roar of the black wild boar. Suddenly, rumble! A huge tree fell with a loud bang. Lin Feng stood upright with the spear in one hand. Blood kept dripping from the tip of the leaping dragon spear. The black wild boar in front of him was brutally dismembered. Even the 2-meter-long tree behind it was implicated. Leaves were scattered all over the ground, and blood dyed the soil red. It was a complete mess. Holding the spear firmly with his right hand, Lin Feng's face finally revealed a smile. He had finally gotten used to killing. In this strike, he had used 80% of his strength. He had used all the power he had practiced on a daily basis. Even though the black-skinned wild boar's impact was extremely strong, in front of an attack that far exceeded its own, it was pale and powerless. The difference in strength between them was too great. This is a real kill. Lin Feng nodded inwardly. Once I master this feeling, I'll be able to enter the inner area. Lin Feng knew that if he really wanted to earn points in Tianwu coins, he had to go deep into the inner district. There were too many monks and too little gruel in the outer district, and there were only low-level bee soldiers. However, there were not only 50,000 low-level bee soldiers in the inner district, but there were also 50 middle-level bee soldiers. Furthermore, the area of the inner district was only 1/10 of the outer district. Most importantly, there were very few martial artists who dared to go to the inner zone. The fifth piece. Just as he put the white chip in his pocket, Lin Feng caught a glimpse of something not far away. Although it was only for an instant, Lin Feng knew that his eyes were definitely not playing tricks on him. It's a magical beast, and it's a magical beast that's known for its speed. Muttering to himself, Lin Feng stomped on the ground with his right foot and chased after it like a gust of wind. The leaping dragon spear in his hand let out a soft, buzzing sound, as if it was slightly excited like Lin Feng's body. Immersed in that strike, it felt quite good. As expected, as he chased closer, Lin Feng quickly found the black shadow. Black and white fur stripes, a pair of cold and sharp eyes, and 6 sharp claws on its 6 feet. 6-legged cat. It's known for its speed and attack. It's one of the more difficult magical beasts to deal with among the low-level bee soldiers. The introduction of the 6-legged cat instantly appeared in Lin Feng's mind. His eyes lit up, and he immediately dove down. With a chi-chi sound, the leaping dragon spear turned into a ray of light and stabbed at the 6-legged cat. This is the feeling. As soon as he attacked, Lin Feng knew that he had a chance. However, swoosh. Just as the spear was about to hit, the 6-legged cat's figure suddenly disappeared. Lin Feng's mind went blank. He stabbed nothing? In a split second, a sharp light appeared in front of him. The 6-legged cat's scarlet eyes were cold and sharp, and its sharp claws swept across the air. Lin Feng was startled. He quickly moved to the side, but he couldn't avoid it. Chi! Chi! After 2 consecutive claw attacks, Lin Feng felt that his left arm was a little numb. He gritted his teeth and took a step back with his right foot and stabbed with the leaping dragon spear. Hiss! The six-legged cat roared and also attacked. The red-haired youth with bloodstains on his face held the moon-seizing blade and moved through the forest. I didn't expect to encounter a group of sword-teeth hounds. The moon-seizing blade in Wang Aolong's hand emitted a sharp light. There were still bloodstains on it. Although I wasted a lot of time, I earned 8 points. It's not a loss. Suddenly, Wang Aolong's gaze fell into the distance. He saw a human figure fighting with a six-legged cat. The six-legged cat let out a series of hisses and made use of the narrow space to unleash its speed to the fullest. The human figure, on the other hand, was struggling to block, and the spear in his hand was unable to unleash its full power. Lin Feng, fighting a six-legged cat so pathetically? Wang Aolong was stunned. He instantly laughed. I thought the so-called level 1 genius would be powerful. His dodging technique is actually worse than that brute Xiong. Lin Feng didn't see Wang Aolong, and he was indeed in a difficult situation. The six-legged cat's body was small, and its speed was fast. Its nimble attacks made him only able to block, and he was completely at a disadvantage in close combat. If it wasn't for the fact that his strength far surpassed the six-legged cat, he would have been seriously injured or even killed. Lin Feng raised the spear in his right hand and stabbed fiercely. But before the spear arrived, the six-legged cat had already dodged. The fierce wind from its claws carried a strong current of air as it attacked Lin Feng's throat. Lin Feng had improved a lot and wasn't as helpless as he was at the beginning. He took a step back and punched out with his left fist. Bang! A violent collision. Lin Feng took 2 small steps back, and the six-legged cat let out a hoarse and unpleasant roar as it flew backwards. For the first time, he had the upper hand, but he relied on his brute strength that far surpassed the six-legged cat's. Following the direction where the six-legged cat flew, Lin Feng caught a glimpse of Wang Aolong, who wasn't far away. His heart shook. I was too engrossed in the battle and didn't notice him at such a close distance. Cold sweat appeared on Lin Feng's forehead. He clearly understood how terrifying this was. If it was a ferocious magical beast, he would be in grave danger. I definitely can't make this mistake. Lin Feng nodded. Just as he was about to go forward and fight the six-legged cat again, he suddenly froze. What he saw, Wang Aolong moved. His speed wasn't fast, but his footsteps seemed to have a regular rhythm. 1 big step, 1 small step, 1 big step, 2 small steps, and at this time the six-legged cat let out a roar. It immediately gave up on Lin Feng and attacked Wang Aolong. Its sharp claws were like the wind, and its speed was very fast. But facing the six-legged cat's astonishing attack, Wang Aolong had his hands behind his back with a relaxed expression. Chi! A cold light flashed. Wang Aolong's left foot loosened, and his body strangely dodged to the side. The six-legged cat stepped on the ground and attacked again. Wang Aolong's body lightly jumped and dodged again. Facing the sharp claws that were like flowing light, Wang Aolong's body didn't seem to move at all. But the six-legged cat's every attack was easily dodged, and it couldn't even touch a single hair on his body. Lin Feng was dumbfounded, standing there in a daze. His eyes shone brightly. Wang Aolong's footsteps seemed to be in slow motion in his mind. Every big step, every small step, and even every sideways movement and turn of his body appeared clearly. It was as if there was a string that connected every step, forming a complete cycle. What a wonderful movement skill! Lin Feng muttered as if he had suddenly understood. Compared to Ziyao's mysterious and profound movement skill, Wang Aolong's movement skill made Lin Feng feel very relaxed. It was very simple. Lin Feng didn't know that there were many different levels of movement skill. Ziyao's movement skill was at an extremely high level, while Wang Aolong's movement skill was only at the basic level. It was like copying a painting. One of them was the masterpiece of a master, while the other was the work of an ordinary villager. I understand now. Lin Feng's eyes shone. In an instant, he had comprehended the essence of Wang Aolong's movement skill. Although Ziyao's movement skill was too high for him to learn, he had still comprehended it for an entire day and night. Even if it was just a superficial knowledge, it was enough for Wang Aolong to use it like a fish in water. At this time, Wang Aolong seemed to have gotten tired of playing. He nimbly sidestepped the six-legged cat's claw attack and unsheathed the moon, seizing blade in his right hand. Chi! A cold light flashed and blood splattered everywhere. The six-legged cat was slaughtered. Wang Aolong flicked the blade, and a white crystal fell into his hand. Lin Feng stared at it and nodded. Combined with movement skill, it can make attacks easier. Every time I attack, it's too passive and hasty. Lin Feng constantly reflected. Although there was no one to guide him, he could learn from his mistakes. Lin Feng didn't blame Wang Aolong for stealing his points. On the contrary, Lin Feng was very grateful. This was an extremely important lesson. If it wasn't for Wang Aolong, he would have to take many detours to comprehend this layer. This is the so-called first-grade genius? Huh. Wang Aolong laughed mockingly. He glanced at Lin Feng, shook his head, and left. To him, Lin Feng wasn't worthy to be his opponent. At this time, Lin Feng was completely oblivious to Wang Aolong's words. He was immersed in a strange state. He simulated the movement skill over and over again in his mind, familiarizing himself with it. The speed and frequency were clearly imprinted into every part of his body. Every minute and every second, Lin Feng was constantly practicing and improving. 15 minutes later, ha ha, Lin Feng laughed loudly. Battle, this is a real battle. It turns out that I've been walking in the wrong direction all this time. Thank you, Wang Aolong. Lin Feng smiled confidently. The leaping dragon spear in his hand hummed softly. His eyes instantly lit up, and he rushed into the depths of the forest. Dear readers, brothers and sisters, please recommend this little one. Please add it to your collection. 3Q. Chapter 32. In the depths of the outer area of Training Force Number 101, the sun was covered by a dense shade. At this moment, a black shadow was fighting with a six-legged cat. The six-legged cat let out a hissing sound as it moved at an astonishing speed. Its sharp claws were constantly clawing at the black shadow, but the black shadow nimbly dodged. His footsteps were not messed up in the slightest. Suddenly, with a shift of his right foot, Lin Feng's body moved backwards like flowing water. In an instant, the six-legged cat's attack missed. At this moment, Lin Feng's leaping dragon spear pierced out like lightning. Chi! One strike pierced through the six-legged cat's body. If this scene was seen by Wang Aolong, he would definitely be shocked, because in such a short period of time, Lin Feng's dodging technique had gone from completely ignorant to beginner level. Dodging technique was an extremely practical and important battle technique. Learning it was not difficult. Most martial warriors could reach the beginner level. Starting from zero, going from completely ignorant to barely grasping the door, and then to beginner level. Those with good talent might be able to reach the beginner level in 10 days or half a month. Those with poor talent might be able to reach the beginner level after a few months or even a year or so. However, Lin Feng had only spent 2 hours to do it. How amazing was that? One had to know that even Wang Aolong, who had been taught since he was young, took almost a month, the 15th piece. Taking out the white crystal, Lin Feng clenched his fist. 2 hours ago, the six-legged cat that made him feel helpless was no longer a threat. As long as my mind is not affected, I can use this technique perfectly. The six-legged cat is nothing to be afraid of. Lin Feng sighed. Body technique is too important. Indeed, Lin Feng was deeply moved. Ever since he had stolen this movement technique from Wang Aolong, he had been able to apply what he had learned. He suddenly realized that these beginner level B soldiers, too weak. No wonder Brother Ting said that actual combat is the fastest way to increase one's strength. Lin Feng raised his left wrist and looked at the locator. On the circular icon, the black dot representing him was very close to the yellow line. He suddenly realized, so I'm about to enter the inner area. No wonder there are so many magical beasts. In the first 4 hours, Lin Feng had hunted 5 white chips. And in the 6th hour, Lin Feng had hunted 10 white crystal chips. Of course, this was related to his improvement in strength, but at the same time, it was also due to the increase in the number of magical beasts. The closer they got to the inner region, the more demonic beasts there were. The density of magical beasts in the inner region is 10 times that of the outer region. The leaping dragon spear in his hand buzzed softly. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. With the enhancement from the titanium energy suit, my defense is comparable to that of a high-level warrior. Beginner-grade B astral weapons can't break through my defense at all. Although intermediate-grade B astral weapons can cause some danger, but I have confidence. Lin Feng's confidence skyrocketed with the improvement of his movement technique and his adaptation to killing. There is only opportunity when there is danger. The outer region is no longer of much help to me. Only by entering the inner region can my strength improve again. For other preparatory warriors, this was an extremely dangerous assessment. But for Lin Feng, this was a real way to improve his strength. Training forest. Inner region. Galloping through the dense forest, the tip of Lin Feng's nose sniffed the strong smell of beasts in the air. His battle intent couldn't help but spread. Compared to the fresh air in the outer region, the smell of beasts in the inner region was extremely strong. 10 times the ratio. However, Lin Feng's face didn't have the slightest fear. Instead, there was a faint excitement. In Lin Feng's bones, he pursued excitement and loved adventure. As a man, he was indomitable. How could he shrink back? With his right foot on the ground, Lin Feng fiercely jumped. His right hand directly hooked onto a willow branch. Using the inertia, he swung forcefully and directly flew through a dense thicket of thorns. While in the air, Lin Feng glanced out of the corner of his eyes. Suddenly, he saw a pair of gloomy and cold eyes shining on the big treetop beside the thicket. Magical beast! Lin Feng's whole body quivered. If he didn't directly leap through the air, he would have been in extreme danger. In the thicket of thorns, he couldn't use his movement technique at all. This magical beast was obviously well-versed in the art of sneak attacks and had been waiting for a long time. So cunning. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. Just as his body landed, he immediately turned around and scuttled towards the cunning magical beast. At this moment, the magical beast roared and also jumped out of the treetop in a flash. Lin Feng focused his gaze. It was an ape-type magical beast with yellow and white fur. It was about the same height as him. A golden-furred white ape, a middle-grade beast soldier. Lin Feng's whole body trembled. He didn't expect to encounter a middle-grade beast soldier just as he entered the inner region. Whoosh! Suddenly, a cold light appeared in front of him. The golden-furred white ape's speed was surprisingly fast. Lin Feng hadn't even used his spear when the shadow of a claw appeared. Lin Feng was shocked and took a step back. Just as he avoided the claw, suddenly, another sharp light flashed in front of him. It was astonishingly fast. How can it be? Lin Feng's face was shocked, but it was too late to avoid it. He only had time to take half a step back. Chi! The shadow of the claw directly tore through his chest. The spiral pattern of the titanium energy suit trembled slightly. Lin Feng only felt his chest tighten and quickly stepped back. At this moment, the golden-furred white ape roared. Its eyes were cold and sharp, and it attacked again. Lin Feng quickly dodged, but just like the first time, he couldn't avoid the second claw. Dong! His chest felt heavy, and Lin Feng only felt suffocated. Although the titanium energy suit could block the attack, it couldn't block the powerful impact. How can this be? Why did my movement technique lose its effect? Lin Feng retreated again and again. His face was shocked, but the golden-furred white ape in front of him didn't give up and chased after him. Its golden figure was astonishingly fast, like a shooting star. In a split second, Lin Feng understood. It's speed. My speed isn't as fast as it. Lin Feng's eyes shone. The golden-furred white ape's speed was at the forefront of mid-level beast weapons. Could it be that this movement technique is useless against enemies whose speed is faster than mine? Lin Feng frowned. Just as he was thinking, the golden-furred white ape's claw shadow flashed again. Lin Feng was shocked. He didn't have time to think about his footwork. His right foot stepped on the ground, and his speed exploded. Suddenly, the golden-furred white ape's attack missed. At this moment, Lin Feng's whole body shook, and his pupils dilated. Yes, speed. If I change the speed of my movement technique, what will happen? Lin Feng's heart pounded violently. The movement technique he learned from Wang Aolong was a complete imitation. The speed and frequency were exactly the same without any deviation. But in reality, this speed and frequency was far from his limit. Let's give it a try. Lin Feng's eyebrows shone with a burning spirit. Facing the golden-furred white ape's fierce attack, he didn't retreat. Instead, he met it head-on. Yes, just like this. I need to maintain this speed and frequency. Lin Feng was calm, as if he was taking a stroll in a courtyard. Sometimes he moved left, sometimes he moved right, sometimes he moved back, sometimes he moved forward. Sure enough, Lin Feng revealed a smile. Under his constant dodging, the golden-furred white ape roared angrily again and again. It attacked with all its might, but it couldn't touch a single hair on Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng's movement technique was exactly the same as before, but the frequency of his speed was completely different. In a short period of time, Lin Feng actually touched the edge of the beginner level of movement technique, reaching the highest frequency of speed. The beginner level of movement technique was to understand the frequency of speed, learning and maintaining the frequency of speed. Beginner level of movement technique was to reach the highest frequency of speed on this basis. Beginner level of movement technique could be said to be simple, but it could also be said to be difficult. It could be said to be simple because if there was someone to guide you, understanding and learning would be much easier than beginner level. It could also be said to be difficult because if there was no one to guide you and you had to rely on yourself, it was very difficult. After all, there weren't many warriors who dared to fight a demonic beast that was faster than them. If they weren't careful, they would be dismembered. This kind of practical training was too arrogant, but Lin Feng dared to do it because he had the defense of a high-rank warrior. Even if he made a mistake and encountered danger, he would at most suffer some light injuries. With the strength of the golden-furred white ape, killing him? Absolutely impossible. 15 minutes later, it's over. On the ground, the golden-furred white ape's corpse was stained with blood. Lin Feng had a pale yellow crystal in his hand. He had a bright smile on his face. What made him happy wasn't the 10 points and 10 Tianwu coins. Instead, he was happy because he had comprehended the movement technique and his strength had increased by another level. With the free help of the golden-furred white ape, Lin Feng had grasped the essentials of beginner-level movement technique in just an hour. The golden-furred white ape's strength is ranked at the top among the mid-level Astral soldiers. If I can kill it, what else do I have to be afraid of? Lin Feng was full of confidence. If not for the fact that he wanted to practice his movement technique, he would have killed the golden-furred white ape long ago. From now on, I'll earn points and Tianwu coins while practicing my spear technique. With a relaxed smile, Lin Feng held the leaping dragon spear in his hand and disappeared into the dense forest in an instant. At night, the stars dotted the sky. Whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng effortlessly killed 2 black-skinned wild boars with his spear. He put the 2 white crystal chips into his bag and smiled indifferently. There are indeed a lot of beasts in the inner district. In just 4 hours, I've killed nearly 100 beasts and 3 mid-level Astral soldiers. To Lin Feng, low-level Astral soldiers were just a suicide mission. Although it wasn't easy to kill mid-level Astral soldiers, it only took a little effort. In the inner district, the efficiency was 10 times higher than in the outer district. Including the golden-furred white ape, for yellow crystal chips, can be exchanged for 40 Tianwu coins. Lin Feng nodded. There was a hint of joy in his eyes. 40 Tianwu coins was equivalent to 4,000 gold coins. This was a huge sum of money that could allow his family to live a wealthy life. Only half of the time has passed. There's still 12 hours left. Muttering to himself, Lin Feng frowned. My spear technique has improved a lot. I can use all my power and kill low-level Astral soldiers easily. But why can't I hit mid-level Astral soldiers? Lin Feng was puzzled. He couldn't figure it out. He could dodge mid-level Astral soldiers' attacks, but mid-level Astral soldiers could also dodge his attacks. Therefore, it was very difficult for Lin Feng to kill mid-level Astral soldiers. Maybe my spear technique hasn't matured yet. Nodding, Lin Feng didn't think too much about it. He was about to set off when suddenly, a loud boom came from not far away. Author's note: my new book is about to set off. I need everyone's support. Tip me, recommend me. Thank you all that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.